Welcome to Death Holler. Do you like scary movies? Welcome to Season 3, Slash or Pass. There will be laughter, tears, tender moments.
Jason, my special boy.
But most of all, screams. Remember, when you're in Death Holler, listener discretion is always advised. We hope you have a killer time.
Next up, we've got Scream 2 from 1997, the sequel. Tagline, Scream Again. Simple, but I guess it's effective.
Simple but effective, yep.
Directed by Wes Craven again, written by Kevin Williamson again, music again by Marco Beltrami. Budget on this one was slightly higher at $24 million. Made $172.4 million box office.
Fucking A, dude.
I mean, these movies were just raking in the cash for Miramax. Principal players again, we got Neve Campbell as our final girl, Sidney Prescott. Chris Durand came in as Ghostface in this one. He was a stuntman in Demolition Man, Smoking Aces, and Armageddon. Laurie Metcalf plays Debbie Salt / Nancy Loomis in this movie, who Billy's mom out for revenge. And of course, she's mostly known for her character on Roseanne's sister, Jackie. She was also the Sheldon's mom on The Big Bang Theory, and was more recently in the movie Lady Bird that came out. Timothy Oliphant plays Mickey Altieri, who Derek's friend, quote unquote, and young Ted Bundy. And then Timothy Oliphant, famous for being Raylan Givens in Justified, more recently played in the Book of Boba Fett, was in the Santa Clarita Diet with Drew Barrymore, and was in The Crazies, the 2010 remake of George Romero movie, which I know that movie gets a lot of shit, but I thought it was actually pretty decent myself. But we'll cover that during, I guess, zombie season, technically. Yeah. Although they're not really zombies in that. David Arquette reprises the role of Dewey Riley. This time he's freelance protection for Sid, and a slightly wiser doofy in this movie.
Older and wiser.
Yeah. He's a whole 25 in this movie.
Woo!
Courtney Cox returns as Gail Weathers. She's still a cutthroat reporter and author, and actually an author in this movie because she went on to write the Woodsboro murders and became famous over it. Jamie Kennedy comes back as Randall Randy Meeks, still pining after Sydney, and still friend zoned, unfortunately. But he did get laid, so that's the reason he gets ganked. Liev Schreiber pops in. He was in the first movie, although I didn't list it because it was like a bit role, but he does return in this one in a more prominent role as Cotton Weary, the falsely accused killer of Maureen Prescott.
To be fair, Drew Barrymore was also a bit role.
Yeah, but Lee Schreiber, like literally, I feel like he was in one scene, like at the end, whenever, like, or something, whatever, or like in the movie where they were like showing that, Sydney's past or whatever, and what happened to Maureen, and like, he's all pissed off, saying that, it was that she didn't have all the facts, and she wrongly accused him and all this stuff, because that was Gail's whole thing in the first movie. She was almost trying to prove that Cotton was not the real killer, so
which he wasn't.
No, but I don't like the retcon they do in part 3 when we get to that one either, but we'll save it. Omar Epps pops in as Phil Stevens, an unlikely moviegoer, and with one of the most hateful women on the planet, is his date. Omar Epps was in Dracula 2000, that Trick movie that I mentioned earlier that Jamie Kennedy was in, Higher Learning, and Don't Be a Menace, where he played the same exact character, one being a parody of the other movie.
Oh, shit.
And then The Devil You Know. And then Jada Pinkett Smith plays Maureen Evans, and you better get her name out your fucking mouth. That's all I'm going to say about her, because we don't need to speak about her, or Will Smith's going to come in here and slap one of us.
Oh, shit.
Or cry, because,
he's been hurt, y'all. Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah Michelle Gellar plays Casey C.C. Cooper, and Sydney's friend and housemate. Of course, known for Buffy the Vampire Slayer primarily. She was also Daphne in the Scooby-Doo live-action movies, opposite Freddie Prinze Jr., and Matthew Lillard and Linda Cardellini. And then I Know What You Did Last Summer. She was in that movie. And she was in Cruel Intentions, which is the movie that it's like her version of Neve Campbell's Wild Things.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody remembers her and her willingness to do anything it took to get ahead in that movie. So Philip Pavel plays Officer Andrew, who's just meat for the gristmill. Christopher Dole plays Officer Richards. Send more cops, because we can always kill more of them. Elsie Neal plays Hallie McDaniel, Sydney's best friend. And then Jerry O'Connell plays Derek Feldman, Sydney's boyfriend in this movie, who's known for being, a overweight child in Stand By Me, although he grew up to, be quite a bit more handsome, I guess you would say, and he was tied to a lot of attractive women in Hollywood.
He married one, too.
Yeah, including Satanic Panic that he filmed with Rebecca Romaine, that he married. Sliders and The Big Bang Theory. He played Sheldon's brother, which is funny because Laurie Metcalf played his mother, so there's kind of a family thing going on there.
Oh my God.
And then the stab stars of the movie are Heather Graham, who plays Casey Becker, Luke Wilson, who plays Billy Loomis, which is hilarious because Luke Wilson definitely does not have skeet-ulrich energy at all.
No.
And then Tori Spelling, who plays Sidney Prescott, which is also terrible, but, it is what it is.
Let's be honest with those three. Heather Graham is the only one who nailed being Drew Barrymore's character of Casey. And Luke Wilson, even though he nailed the lines, he didn't have the I don't know, the
Stab looked like a parody of Scream.
For sure.
With him and that character.
And then Tori Spelling was just no all around. It just got worse.
It did get worse. Synopsis for this movie. Sydney, trying to move on from the trauma at Woodsboro, is attending Windsor College and using the luxury of caller ID to screen out the ghost face prank calls. Tragedy strikes again, however, when a copycat killer begins stalking college students when names matching aspects of the original Woodsboro murder victims. Buffy is thrown from a balcony. Randy still doesn't get the girl, but does get shanked. And Raylan Givens wants to be part of the trial of the century. Someone has taken their love of sequels one step too far. Body count in this movie is 11 counted, 12 uncounted. We have Phil Stevens, who is stabbed in the head by Mickey Altieri. Whew. Maureen Evans, which is funny because that particular scene is the exact scene that Ray is mimicking. And I laugh, and I always comment on when I look at my wife when we're watching Scream 2. I was like, this scene where Ray gets the dick through his ear.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen Evans gets stabbed a whole bunch of times by Mickey Altieri, and then Will Smith shows up and smacks Ghostface. CC Cooper is stabbed a bunch, thrown 3 stories down by Mickey Altieri. Randy Meeks is stabbed a bunch off screen and his throat slit by Nancy Loomis. Officer Andrews has his throat slit by Mickey. Officer Richards is pipe impaled through head by Mickey, which is one of the better kills in that movie. Mm-hmm. Hallie McDaniel is stabbed in the chest a whole bunch by Mickey. Derek Feldman is shot in the chest by Mickey. Nancy Loomis is shot in the neck by Cotton Weary. And then Mickey is shot many times, so much by, and a lot of them by Sidney and Gail Weathers. And then non-counted deaths is stabbed Casey because she stabbed on the cinema screen by the movie Stu Macher while Maureen is being killed. So they kind of get like another little, fake kill in there.
Yeah.
Quote, Randy from the trailer, the way I see it, someone's out to make a sequel, cash in on a movie murder hoopla, so it's our job to observe the rules of the sequel. Number 1, the body count is always bigger. Number 2, which it is, they live up to that. Number 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate, which they are. Mm-hmm. Carnage candy.
Yep.
And number 3, never, ever, under any circumstances, assume the killer is dead, which, obviously with Mickey, he's almost like a Michael Myers the way he comes back after being shot so many times. Randy, stab 2, who would want to do that? Sequels suck. Oh, please. By definition alone, sequels are inferior films, which is hilarious. That's a meta commentary about the movie they're making.
Yes.
Phone voice, what's your favorite scary movie? Randy, Showgirls, absolutely frightening. What's yours? Again, going back to poor Elizabeth Berkley on that one. Randy, oh yeah? Well, let's redirect the moment, Mr. I'm So Original. Where's your motivation, huh? Why copy yourself off of 2 high school losers, loser-ass dickheads? Stu was a pussy-ass wet rag, and Billy Loomis, what the fuck? Jesus. Talk about a rat-looking homo repressed mob. Why not set your goals higher, huh? You want to be one of the big boys, huh? Manson, Bundy, OJ, son of, and then he's cut off. 2 points about that. First of all, he brings up the sexually repressed Billy that we mentioned, so bonus points for that. But he mentions OJ. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Dewey, when did she start smoking? Randy, ever since those nude pictures on the internet. And then Gail, it was just my head. It was Jennifer Aniston's body.
That was I was dying when I heard that. I was like, oh. And I wonder if they had to get permission from Jennifer Aniston.
I don't know. They were still filming Friends, so she probably brought it up to her, and they probably had a good laugh or something. Yeah,
and it's not. It wasn't a good light. Like, it's talking good about Jennifer Aniston, so
Which, speaking about that, Courtney Cox was hot in this movie.
Yes.
Like, I mean, the something about that red in her hair, like,
made
her blue eyes
it.
Stand out that much more.
I loved it. I remember that was such a thing back then, and I could never afford to get that exact look.
Yeah, well, and my wife tried that at one point in time around it was a little after this movie, but like it was either with blue or red, either one of them did not stick. Like you were constantly having to have that shit reapplied. It was awful.
I did it when I finally could afford it. I did purple, and now I know better ways to do it, as I have a child that likes to have colored hair. And we know a healthier and a long-term version of it, but it wasn't easy, and for me, it was super expensive.
Well, back in the day, it was like you had to bleach it first, which damaged the hair, and then you had to add all the stuff, and then it would only last for like a week, and then.
Oh my God. Yep.
Sidney Prescott, I want to know who it is. And then Hallie was like, no, Sid. And Sidney Prescott, I'm going back. And then Hallie, stupid people go back. Smart people run. We're smart people, so we should get the fuck out of here. And I bring that up because this is by far, and it will be brought up in the Death Holler Awards, the stupidest moment that Sidney ever has in the entire fucking series.
Yes.
So getting into the movie, visuals, the kills were better, as we said. The pipe scene for sure.
Oh God.
The crunch when Cece was thrown from the balcony, that was pretty impactful. And then the blood running out from underneath the van after Randy was stabbed. That was brutal.
Yes. I wonder how many gallons they used in this one. Do you have that number?
I don't know that I have it in this one, but it was up there. But the this movie was there was less nighttime scenes in this one. I feel like everything was brightly lit in this movie, like because they were either inside of a house that was brightly lit, at a party that was brightly lit, even if it was outside during the nighttime, on stage under the stage lights, or just the middle of the day, like in a sunny California college. So this movie didn't really have like the good nighttime contrast that the first movie had.
It didn't, and even the night scenes were even very well lit.
Yeah, like the scene with the cops and the pipe that we mentioned with the car, like it was very well lit. Like they had, like, I mean, it was like there was like flood lamps like set up, which there probably was, but I mean that's what it looked like.
Yeah, so I mean, which is good because you want to be able to see what you're looking at,
Yeah, the only problem is that I just feel like it I don't know, it felt a little less realistic that way.
Yeah,
like
it did feel everything felt staged.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it because it literally they were on a stage at one point. So yeah, I mean, perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
I will say this though, speaking about stage, the visuals for that scene where Sydney is like trying to still act for David Warner's character, which I didn't mention, but R.I.P. to him. Like he plays the perfect college professor.
Yeah,
I think that's the character that they kind of stole for Scary Movie 2, the one that Tim Curry played or whatever. It's kind of that same character. But anyways, that scene where she's running away from those Greek masks or whatever on stage, that was pretty creepy and well done. I'll give them that.
And I think they mixed in Ghostface really well.
Yeah, it only popped up in like flashes, and then it turns out it was on Sydney's mind, or was it? It was.
Well, that's the thing is like, why? I would never even. Maybe a college professor might be like, "Oh, it's poetic," like she's reliving what she's already been through. Only this is through a Greek fucking play. But I'm like, that's fucking traumatic as fuck.
Yeah, it was almost like something Wes Craven would have done to Drew Barrymore.
Oh, 100%.
It's like live through this trauma and now act. Ghostface is Ghostface. I mean, it's the same setup. I mean, there's really no alterations in this movie whatsoever on that front. They did a little bit different since the main bad guys didn't get actually stabbed in this movie. They were just shot. It was a little bit different that way, but I mean the blood effects, like especially Timothy Oliphant, like bleeding from his mouth and everything, looked good.
Yeah, I think the scene where Sid's boyfriend got shot right in the chest, that was pretty fucking insane.
Yeah, that was crazy and out of nowhere. And then the scene that was brutal was the scene with Dewey. Like, Bill had to watch as he gets stabbed through that, while he was inside that recording studio or what it was.
Yeah.
That was. I mean, there was a lot of blood in that scene.
Oh yeah.
Anything else you want to add to the visuals? That's pretty much what I remember from it. But
I'm trying to think, because I mean, other than the fact that everything looking staged, I didn't particularly like that. Trying to think if there was anything else that stood out. I can't, not off the top of my head. So
yeah, it's not as memorable in that way as the first one. It just isn't. The story, it's interesting. It's a neat twist on the sequel thing. A lot of horror sequels take place in, hospitals. So or slasher sequels. So it's funny that this one takes place in a college, or a brightly lit one at that. And then, of course, them dealing with Sydney's trauma, which is the first time really ever that's been addressed for a final girl, which is good. A really good idea.
It's very human.
It is. I feel like the stuff with I feel like the stuff with her boyfriend in the movie, though, Derek, it was a little too schmaltzy, because I don't feel like somebody that went through what she did with Billy would be that. I mean, she is closed off to Derek, but not to the extent that, I mean, I know she's trying to open up in the movie, but that first scene for poor Randy, especially, where he's sitting there and he's talking to her and he's all puppy dog eyed, and then Derek walks in and just like, they're like smooching, like, and I feel like that's a little too, I feel like Sydney should have been a little bit more, like closed off from him, like, at the beginning. And then it would have worked better if she would have like opened up to him right before he got killed, because then it would have like been pulling the rug out from under her at that point.
Yeah. I feel like to me, it felt like she was kind of pushed into that by the boyfriend. Not saying that he, sexually assaulted her or anything by any means. I'm not trying to go that route. I'm trying to say that he is an outsider, so he doesn't really understand what she's been through. So he's just very enthusiastic about the relationship and, everything. And she wants to be, so she's kind of just going with it,
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got from it, because Neve Campbell has a really good way of looking reserved about a lot of things, and she did look reserved. So,
yeah, that's true. And then the one part they did well, even though it gets on my nerves just because it's so cutesy, is that scene where he's like, singing that song, what am I so afraid of or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like, she has that look at first. It's like, don't do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, but I don't know. This is probably the best sequel. I think that's pretty much established by a lot of people, but at the same time, there's a lot to me that doesn't live up to the original in this one by any means.
100%. I mean, it definitely went downhill, but it was definitely a movie I would not have been upset if I had gone to a theater to watch it. Because there are certain movies you go to a theater and you're like, fuck, I could have waited for that to come out. I wouldn't have felt that way with this one.
I feel like, well, no, I can't say that. I don't know what I remember about this movie, because I don't know that I saw it in the theater. I don't remember.
I don't remember
but
either.
I do remember one thing. It's taken me years, but I was always pissed at them killing Randy. Oh my God. Like when they did that, I know the impact it's supposed to have. It's supposed to be like, this is a loved character. It's like, anybody can be killed, even Sid. But then even watching it, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, I mean,
watching it again, I was like, is he gonna live? Because Dewey got fucking slashed like a motherfucker, and he lived.
Yeah, and then he had a trauma that caused him to have a limp, which disappeared, a movie after that. So,
which I did. It was funny because when they were pulling him out of this film, at the end, when they were kind of pulling him out, and she's like, Dewey, I feel like they're like, yeah, they got him right on the scar tissue, is what they said. And I'm like, okay, so is that why he lost his, is like some kind of reverse, like procedure that managed to get him to walk normally for the most part?
No, there's a reason they give, and I'll get into the trivia. It's a bullshit reason. Okay. Yeah, that's not the reason they give, but that's funny that you say that.
Yeah, I was like, why did they say that? Like, they got him right on the scar tissue. Like, did that prevent him from dying? Is that a thing? You're the doctor here.
It does. No, it wouldn't, and that's plot armor to the utmost extent. I hated how they did the Randy thing too, because Dewey, which is, I mean, spoiler, but anybody who's followed this should know this. Like, part 5 does eventually meet his end, but at least in that movie, even if there's a bit of dumbness to it that I still am aggravated about, but they give him a hero send off. They don't do that to Randy. They have Randy deliberately split up from the group, which I think is fucking stupid.
And he knows better.
Yeah. He's the one laying out the rules for everybody, and then he's just like, I'm gonna go looking on my own, and then like leaves. And if nothing else, he should have at least taken somebody with him, because I mean, Dewey pairs off with Gale, so at least they're the two of them are together, and then Randy just goes off on his own. And then I just don't. They didn't give Randy the respect, I feel like, in his death in this movie. I would have been fine if they'd killed him, if they've done it a different way, but it's just like he's randomly pulled into Gale's like news van, and then like or a news van, and then like killed off, and that's it. And then like it's just dumb.
And not only that, you have to think that in this particular scene, he was technically killed by Billy Loomis's mom. I'm not buying that any woman portraying Ghostface had the strength of any man in this film whatsoever.
No. I mean, even if you take the lanky, nerdy, Randy, he had reach on her, if nothing else. We've already discussed this.
Yeah.
I mean, and Laurie Metcalf is not 6, foot tall or whatever. So that's not going to, and you said, was it Matthew Lillard or was it Jamie Kennedy that was 6'4"? I think it's Lillard that was 6'4".
Lillard was 6'4", and Jamie Kennedy was 6 foot. So still,
Yeah, there's no. I just it's just a bad way for them to get taken out. But I feel like that's kind of like this movie it does like what sequels do. It's like you take the original, but then you like do the carbon copy thing to a certain extent. It changes it a little bit, but it's a diminished product versus it's not as sharp as the original, and that kind of plays into the death of Brandy especially.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything that you want to add about the story? Like, there's not. I mean, it's pretty rote in my opinion. There's not a whole lot that really is different about it.
You got this alleged obsessed mom that is avenging her son's death. But where the fuck were you when you decided to take off?
Yeah, that's never addressed.
You killed my baby, bitch. You left your baby. And not only that, it would be one thing if she didn't try to avenge him. It was just like, you know what? You're the reason I left. Your mom was the reason I left my fucking husband, and I missed out on time with my son. And accusing her, even though clearly it's her fault for leaving her son. Maybe if they had directed it that way, it would make a little bit more sense. But again, this is the first introduction to a woman, girl, ghost face killer. And again, not buying that any woman has the strength of Jason Voorhees, basically. I can understand the guy where the scenes where the guy is the killer, doing some of the things that's happening, but I'm not seeing her, other than the element of surprise, even the stab motions, I'm not buying either.
Well, here's a question for you. How do you feel about how they worked her into the movie? Because they have her as like a Gail Weathers wannabe in the movie. Yes. When she's Debbie Salt, and that's their way of keeping her in the film without like really revealing who she is until the final reel.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like it was a weird, in my opinion, it was a weird way to get her into the movie, having her as like a kind of like a pseudo Gail. Like I don't know if they could have had her as like a house mother for like the sorority or something like that.
Yeah.
That would have been like, and maybe it would have been harder to describe why she'd been at that dorm for that long, having give her like her story. But it's just something about her just being like part of the paparazzi news team. Just it's okay, but it's not like the best thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say that it was weird, except for in my mind I can't think of another way she would have been introduced. I mean, you named off a few and everything, and I guess I just am like, well, I mean, yeah. I think one thing that Noah brings up is that, and even Gail kind of backs us up a little bit. Gail always says you have to be the bitch. You have to be the person that nobody likes in order to get what you want in terms of telling a story or being a journalist. And in this particular case, I could see someone as insane as Mrs. Loomis being that character. And that's how she looks unhinged. She looks like she's the bitch. She looks like she's the person out to get the story, because really she is. She's trying to basically create a movie, ultimately, her and Mickey. While Mickey's trying to create the movie, she's just kind of going with it. She's able to find a psycho to kind of help her work her plans. But that being said, I can't see her being like maybe the house mother, as you suggested, because I think she's too unhinged to be able to handle that.
Yeah, well, I get that. Like, she wouldn't be able, and it would have been hard to describe how she would have been able to be in the background and with the way that she is, and not have like give like red flags to everybody around her.
Exactly.
In that sense. Whereas if she's the newscaster that, or so-called, then she can just come in there and nobody questions it because they're all swimming in like piranhas anyway.
Yeah,
so.
And that's my dumb explanation to explain it away, basically.
I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not bad. It's just I wonder if there was another way, because I don't know. It's introduced, but it really doesn't produce anything, because like her motive doesn't roll back into it. I think my biggest problem, if they would have worked her motive into that, the news thing, it would have probably worked.
Yeah.
But her ultimate motive is just to get revenge for her son.
Yeah.
And like, and nothing about that news persona worked into that. It was just like an extraneous thing just to be able to get like near the college or whatever, like to be on the campus or whatever.
Yeah, it was very generic, but I guess
she could have been like a lunch lady at the and got the same kind of connection, and if they just had her like in the background shots or something, and that would have worked just as that way or something.
Yeah, that would have worked.
Or they had the cafeteria scene. What if she'd been like somebody that was like having to clean up after, like all the stupid, dancing and stuff, or just something like that. Or like I said, work it into her like motive, because her motive doesn't, it's like the Chekhov's gun thing. It's like, it just doesn't naturally flow from what they introduced her as the character. But anyways.
Speaking of college real quick, I want to point out this college cafeteria that looked like a high school cafeteria.
Yes.
Yes. That wasn't a thing when I was in college, or community college, or regular.
There was a cafeteria.
There's a cafeteria,
whenever I went to UK, that looked like that. But granted, it was like the rundown cafeteria of like before that, because they were constantly remodeling all of them. There was another one that they had built like while I was going, and it was like an adjunct to a library, and that thing was immaculate. But that's whenever the money started rolling in and all that.
Yeah.
But like the old school cafeteria, that like it actually looked worse than my high school cafeteria.
Yeah, I was like, well, first off, I was like, they didn't have tables like that where you sat on the benches. Like my cafeterias at the colleges I attended had just like, they looked like mall restaurants, basically, where you had the areas you can go buy your food, and then when you sat down, there was like either booths or round tables or small tables or bar stools with, little mini bar to sit at, So it didn't look anything like that. And I know it's a difference between California and where you're at, quite potentially. But I was like, is this a thing?
Yeah, I don't see that being a thing in California. Like you said, it was it would have been, it looked more like a thing, that we might have had around here or something at the time.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Let's see. We've already discussed visual story, the acting. Acting's fine. There's really nobody that stood out as being like terrible in the movie to my knowledge. There's a few times where Jerry O'Connell like comes off as a little flat, but I mean, like, but there's other times where he's got genuine concern on his face, and so he kind of brings the character back. So that's fine. And I don't know if they did the flat stuff to kind of make it, because they sell Derek as the, and I always forget, if it's been a long time since I've watched the movie, I always forget that he's not one of the killers because of that, whole scene right before he's shot, where he's trying to convince Sid that he's not one of them.
Yeah.
I think that maybe his flat acting might have been a way for them to kind of try to sell the red herring aspect to his character a little bit. So that might not have been intentionally bad acting. It might have been part of the, meta plot or something.
Yeah. I mean, the main characters, the acting wasn't any less than what it was from the first film, which is good. They were consistent. I will say there were actors in this film that fell flat, in my opinion, and maybe not as necessary. For instance, Cece Cooper, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. It was dull, and I was like, this is not Sarah Michelle Gellar, because she's a pretty decent actress.
I mean, we're going back to, Cruel Intentions. I mean, she's acting her ass off in that movie. But it's funny you say that, because she was a total bitch to work with, according to Wes Craven.
Wow.
So maybe that, maybe that was her being, a little bit petty.
Yeah.
And her not bringing her A game because she just wasn't jiving with the whole thing.
Yeah. Laurie Metcalf, she wasn't selling her role to me.
She's too TV. Like, I mean, she's still Jackie from Roseanne.
Yeah.
Like, there's no difference in that character from her previous role. Timothy Olyphant is okay.
I thought he was okay.
He goes on. He's a lot better actor now.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like, but he was okay in this one.
He wasn't terrible. I was buying what he was selling.
Yeah. Trying to think of anybody else in the movie. The friend really didn't stand out one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like, her best friend that ends up getting killed in that stupid scene where she goes back to the car. Like, her friend was just kind of there. Like, she didn't stand out like Rose McGowan no way, shape, or form. So
yeah, I liked her too back in the day. I thought she was I liked her in some of the stuff that I'd seen her with. She's just pretty. So there's that. I'm trying to think. Rebecca Gayheart and Portia de Rossi, they were basically the
bitch, the
bitches.
mean girls.
Yeah, they were part of the sorority, and the sorority was so irrelevant in this film. And if anything, it was just like I was just like, I don't need you here. Bye. You know, we didn't need them for anything.
The sorority and the whole plot of that was as irrelevant as the plot with the cop and Cocaine Bear having the dog. That's how irrelevant it was.
Exactly.
Didn't factor in, didn't need it. If they did a second pass through on the script, they could have probably cut that out and worked in some other stuff, and it would have been fine.
They could have saved some of their budget by not paying those actresses to be useless.
The only thing that set up was them having the party where, you know, like while Cece was being attacked, they was having that party, and then like Derek gets attacked later on at the party after it empties out, and then like where he just barely gets slashed by Ghostface instead of getting full on stabbed. That adds to the red herring, but they could have done that at any other point in the movie.
And they could have done that with any. It could have been that with was more relevant than sorority was the oh God, what's the guy version of sororities?
The fraternity.
The fraternity. They were more relevant because they had to get him. He gave his letters to his girlfriend, so they had to attack him. There was no reason for the sorority to be involved.
That's true. Yeah, it didn't factor in. It was just like a little added side plot, you know, that came in there. Let's see, music. This was very of its time. Like, I mean, this soundtrack more so than the original soundtrack. Because
Definitely.
I mean, Red Right Hand feels, you know, like kind of classic can fit any time frame.
Mm-hmm.
This was like, you know, I mean, I feel like Creed was in this. Like, I mean, it was that type of, you know, music or whatever. It was definitely that time period.
This was the movie that I did hear and I wouldn't say orchestrated, but basically a composed piece. And it was when Sydney was talking to her boyfriend at the college, and the music didn't fit. It was very, I don't know, happy romantic, and it wasn't. It was a scene of basically of her not trusting him, but him asking her if he trusts her, or if she trusts him. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I was like, this music does not fit. And that rarely happens to me, to where I notice the music. Because the music, you're right, it fit this film, except for this particular scene. I can't, like I said, not 100% dialed down on the scene. But, yeah. Oh, my God, they had Tonic. Tonic was fucking... They had Tonic in the soundtrack, which was very of that time.
Which song by Tonic?
It's called Eyes of Sand.
Okay, I would have thought it was like If You Could Only See or one of those.
Oh, yeah.
But
didn't they sing that song too, Love Is Always Better When You're Gone?
Yeah,
you wanted more. She Said by Collective Soul, which is one of the ones you want to use.
Yeah, that one. That one's one that, I mean, I like the band anyways, but I feel like that ending for that movie, you know, we talked about the prison thing and like, you know, like you're just feeling like, you know, like fingers crawling down your spine or whatever, like whenever certain music hits.
Oh yeah.
The shit that she goes through between the first and the second movies and the words in that song, and the way that song is sung, it just fits because it's like somebody who's been through like it's a song about this woman who's like feels like, you know, life has just run her down. She doesn't believe in love anymore, and it's like it fits, like it just fits that character, like it's perfect, you know.
Here's one that doesn't fit the film, but it definitely fits the time, because I haven't heard this name in forever, and you may have never heard this singer's name or rapper. Is a song called Scream by Silk the Shocker and Master P. Now Master P, everyone's heard of him, but Silk the Shocker, it's been a minute.
No, I definitely outside my wheelhouse. Like, I don't know any of that stuff.
Okay. Everclear, they had a song called The Swing. Everclear, definitely of that time.
Mm-hmm.
Foo Fighters with a song called Dear Lover. Dave Matthews Band with Help Myself. Sugar Ray with Rivers. This is all on the official soundtrack. D'Angelo, which was an R&B singer back in that day. She's Always in My Hair. I'm not familiar with that one now. They had Cottonmouth Kings too.
Yeah, that definitely fits for the time
Oh,
period.
yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
100%. So I'm surprised I didn't look at the soundtrack for the first one, but the first one, I don't know that they knew it was going to be as big as it was going to be.
Yeah, I don't. This one, they had such a huge success with the first one that I think bands were just, or labels were like throwing like records at them. It's like, please put this in this next movie, please.
Yeah, the only thing I see in the first album, the only singer I see that was relevant at all that time that I remember, I should say, is Moby.
Which Moby song is
For
it?
Scream 1, it's called First Cool Hive. Never heard of it. Not that I'm familiar with anyway, so.
No, I've never heard of that one. There is a song at the end of that first Scream movie, though, that sounds, it's such a 90s song or whatever. And I sent that to you or whatever in the Discord. But
yeah.
It's We Are Children or whatever. And like it plays right as the end credits are going over. And it's like it couldn't be more 90s if it tried.
Oh, my God.
Song, so.
Yeah.
Are we ready for trivia?
I'm ready.
One scene in Kevin Williamson's screenplay was described simply as Wes Craven will make it scary.
Okay.
He wrote it and he's like, Wes will make this scary. I'm just going to move on.
Okay.
At around 1 minute, Paulette Patterson, who plays the usher who hands masks to Maureen and Phil.
With the noise, with the squeak, with the weird baggy noise.
Yeah. She won that role in a contest sponsored by MTV.
Holy shit.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
We've already said this. Robert Rodriguez directed the stab scenes.
Love it.
The cast was not informed of the identity of the killer until the last day of principal photography. Also, the cast did not receive the last 10 pages of the shooting script until it was time to film the scenes. And furthermore, the last 10 pages of the shooting script were printed on gray paper in order to deter illicit duplication.
Nice.
All cast members were required to sign confidentiality clauses as parts of their respective contracts that precluded them from discussing the outcome of the movie and the killer's identity. It's a good thing that Tom Holland was a young man and couldn't have acted in this movie because he would have revealed everything.
He would have. And not only that, but like, did the killers not even know who they were?
No, nobody knew who the killers were until the last.
I would have been stoked to find out that I was a killer.
I'm sure that Timothy Oliphant was like jumping for joy when he found out he was one of the killers.
Yeah,
in the movie.
and not only that, but like, it gives them a realism when they're playing their non-killer characters.
Yeah, because the entire movie, that's one thing that I'll say in Timothy Oliphant's acting is that you never get the sense from Mickey that he's anything but Derek's best friend.
Yeah.
Like,
And not only, oh my God, the whole thing is just weird. Like, I can't wrap my tiny girl brain around this, that like, they had no idea.
The only person who might have been like, I don't know how she wouldn't have thought about it, been Laurie Metcalf.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
we talked about with her character, like if she didn't otherwise she would just been like, the only way they could have went with it is kind of like steered in the sense that they thought that, or maybe this time Gail was trying to like drum up her own like next book or sales or something like that.
Yeah,
and then like Laurie was the one that would become famous, revealing that Gail was a kid. That's the only way that could have been spinned to let Laurie, not think that she was the killer.
Hold on, I want to read something about this. Here, the cast. Okay. Last 10 pages, printed on gray paper. I mean, that makes sense. They require, okay, I understand the signing the confidential clause. Holy crap, you're in this movie and you're like, there's a possibility I could fucking be the killer.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty cool that they kept it that way.
Now I know what I wanted to say. It makes sense in this particular movie. You know how I was mad how Dean Winchester didn't actually play the killer in My Bloody Valentine? Because I was like, well, he could have. He had the look, he had the height, he had the body frame.
And he had the mannerisms. He could have easily been the character.
It 100% makes sense why they have a separate killer in this film, or person playing the killer, so that it's never really given away who is going to be the killer.
That's true. It could that really, that way they can't even attempt to say, okay, it's going to be, Timothy Oliphant, because it's another person entirely. So it could be a sub in for any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Actors who auditioned for the role of or part of Derek were asked to perform the scene in the cafeteria with "I Think I Love You" a cappella, and the role of Derek went to Jerry O'Connell, I guess, and I don't know why he didn't sing it the best. I can tell you that much. Kevin Williamson had the idea for a sequel while writing the script for Scream 1996, discovering there was more to the story. The movie began principal photography just 6 months after the release of the first Scream. And it was released less than a year after its predecessor. There was a quick turnaround on this one.
Oh, my God. They must have been working nonstop.
So I'll give them this. Considering it is the best sequel and considering the quick turnaround for what they was able to accomplish in the short amount of time they did, it's an exceptionally good movie. I mean, it has warts, but I mean, those warts could have been fixed if they'd had a longer turnaround than what they did.
No, they were pumping it out.
There's a scene earlier on in the movie when Sydney confronts Randy as they're walking to class about the killings on campus and insists it's another killing spree all over again. And at that point, Randy inexplicably switches to an English accent for the rest of the scene. In a recent podcast, Jamie Kennedy burst into laughter when he watched the scene and admitted he had no idea why Randy was suddenly switched accent.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense to me because I'm like, I don't think he was directed to do that, and I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, I feel like he was just being kind of an asshole.
I feel like it's natural because, like, I don't know if it's, I mean, maybe you don't have a situation like this, but where I work at, like, we'll randomly just, like, you know, burst into accents, like, you know, for stupid reasons. And, like, it feels natural that Randy would do that. Like, he would, you know. That
makes sense because I'm going to annoy the fuck out of you right now because I'm not going to do the accent, but I imitate Kourtney Kardashian at work all the time with her dull and flat voice and make fun of my coworkers with it, and they fucking die over it. And I do it every day. It just pop out of random where somebody will do something stupid and I'll just call them out on it.
I'll give you an example, and it's funny that you sent this to me. That one that was recently, it's been made into like a video on TikTok, Instagram, and all that, of the one guy being interviewed or whatever, because it's been on Nerdrotic, and I love it. It's like, hold up, wait a minute. Yeah, something ain't right. You know, like I broke into that the other day at work because I thought it was hilarious. You know.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Nev Campbell would shoot Party of Five on Mondays and Tuesdays during the day, and spent Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the movie, most of which were night shoots. And on Sundays, she would work all night until 6 a.m., go home for 15 minutes to shower off all the fake blood, and immediately go back and start filming for Party of Five.
Fucking
all without sleeping.
No, fuck that. No wonder she looked tormented.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give her credit. I mean, she was busting ass for this stuff. I mean, at around 13 minutes, like in the first film, you can find a reference to Freddy Krueger, played by Robert Englund in Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, iconic sweater in Haley's and Sydney's dorm room in the beginning of the film hanging on their closet door.
Oh, my God.
Various titles were considered for the sequel at different points in the film's production, including Scream Again, Scream Louder, and Scream the Sequel.
No, and no.
Yeah, Scream 2, it works. That's all you need. At around 1 hour and 1 minute, Randy's reference to fake nude pictures of Gail Weathers on the internet was inspired by fake images of Courtney Cox that appeared on the web prior to production of the movie. So that was a meta comment on her real life.
Hold on, I'm looking them up right now. I want to see how fake they look because I imagine they don't look.
They didn't have good deep fakes back in the day.
No.
I mean, you could see the neck seams all the time back on the ones they used to do.
Yeah. Apparently, these photos do not exist anymore because it did not. Courtney Cox, maybe I should put nudes.
I'll go on to the next part. You keep looking. Many of the actors and actresses involved in this production, including Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Jerry O'Connell, were starring in their own television series at the time, allowing the production limited availability to schedule their involvement. Gellar, in particular, was in between filming of Buffy and only recently finished work on Kevin Williamson's other film, I Know What You Did Last Summer. But despite the the hectic scheduling, Geller admitted in an interview that she agreed to perform in the movie without having read a script because of the success of the original Scream.
Oh my God. I found the nudes. They're fucking terrible.
Yeah, I figured they would be.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
And of course, Courtney Cox was in Friends. Jerry O'Connell had been around the time he was doing Sliders, because that was late 90s when he was doing that show. And then, of course, Buffy. So that was the other shows besides Party of Five.
It's just like a whole CW reunion, I swear, every time.
Basically. Originally scheduled to open alongside Tomorrow Never Dies and Titanic, both blockbusters shifted their dates so as to not to be pitted against Scream. Think about that for a moment.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. I know what you did last summer. What else was there?
It was Tomorrow Never Dies and Titanic. They were both afraid of the Scream movie interfering with their box office, so they moved their dates.
Oh my God. That's fucking, I mean, it makes so much sense, but like, could you imagine having to be put up against Scream?
It's just funny knowing that Titanic is like outside of, I mean, it got replaced by Avatar, but like it was the number one grossing movie of all history. And they were initially afraid that the Scream sequel would, and it might have actually knocked it down, and it wouldn't have went on to be what it was if it hadn't been, because both men and women went to watch this movie. So it wasn't like, I mean, you know, I feel like the guys for Titanic were dragged in. Either they were history buffs or their girlfriends dragged them to that. Whereas in this movie, it was both, like wanting to watch a fun movie, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So in 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks, Scream 6 is coming out. Could you imagine like Scream 6 and Cocaine Bear pitted against each other?
I feel like that gives Cocaine Bear enough time to kind of do what it's going to do, so it's not too bad.
It does. No, it does. But what if they had been released like near each other, like within days?
No, that would have really. I think that's the reason Universal went ahead and released it when they did, because they knew that, you know, Paramount was going to get all the money for Scream 6. I mean, that was going to be out at that time. I mean, I don't know that Scream 6 is going to have the draw necessarily that it originally had, but when we get to it, that requel, Scream 5, did the numbers. Like, it did the same numbers almost that the original Scream did.
Scream is a Paramount franchise, right?
What's that?
A Scream is a Paramount franchise?
Yes.
Is Paramount in cahoots with Universal?
They work together on things. They're not like Warner Brothers. They don't like get pissy about their horror franchises and deliberately try to stage one-off things like they did with It, have their own like little It house, that the installation, as they called it, that they randomly popped up in places. They do work with, there is a very real possibility that Scream 6 could be at HHN.
Okay, the reason why I bring that up is because I want to say it was the third film, is that I swear that's Universal Studios, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, they all have Paramount, like when you go to watch them, like, you know, on the disc or whatever, it like brings up, you know, Paramount's like, you know, logo and all that.
Yeah.
So. After filming, Jada Pinkett Smith sent director Wes Craven a set of steak knives for Christmas.
Who sent her?
Jada Pinkett sent Wes Craven a set of steak knives for Christmas. Oh my God.
That's actually pretty funny. I wonder how good they were. Like, I wonder if he looked at them and like, this is fucking shit.
I wonder if it was the Ginsu knives. Remember when they was a big thing back in the day?
Those were fucking legit.
It earned 1/3 of its total gross of $1.13 million in its opening weekend.
Fucking
1/3
shit.
of that in the first weekend.
Fucking shit.
David Warner, who played Gus, the theater director, was personally chosen by Wes Craven for a cameo because Craven had been impressed with Warner's acting ever since he saw him in The Omen.
Oh, yeah.
And Warner had also auditioned for the role of Freddy Krueger back in the original Nightmare on Elm Street before, Robert Englund got it.
Wow.
I think that would have been interesting to have David Warner as Freddy Krueger, because he played a menacing person very well back when he tried.
I can 100% see it.
Both this and the original Scream were among the highest grossing films of 1997, which is funny. I mean, saying that they were both in the same year, because even though that Scream was released late in 96, most of its money was made in 97.
97, yeah. Fuck.
Co-producer Julie Plec revealed on Twitter that the original song that played over the last few minutes of the film was supposed to be Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. However, because the song sampled certain arrangements from a song by the Rolling Stones, it was too expensive for the movie's budget, and the producers then decided to use She Said by Collective Soul, asking them to add a cello element to evoke the same emotion that Bittersweet Symphony had. Two things about this. A, that makes that song so much better having the cello in it, and B, is that it's funny because Bittersweet Symphony is the song that plays at the end of Cruel Intentions.
Yes, I was just going to say that. Which film did it play? Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, because that's whenever he's like Ryan Felipe or whatever, I believe is in that, and he walks out and then the car hits him or you know, whatever, and then like you get the reaction from Sarah Michelle Gellar and it's playing Bittersweet Symphony at the end of it, which is that's another like Frisian moment. Like I love that. That's a perfect song for that moment in that film. So,
yeah.
Officer Andrews, Philip Pavel, and Officer Richards, Christopher Doyle's names are references to Brian Andrews and Kyle Richards from Halloween.
Oh my God.
Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jerry O'Connell began dating on the set of this film. So there you go. I told you Jerry O'Connell was back. You know, he was getting with all the ladies, you know, once he grew up and, you know, got thin. So
he
there
was
you
a
go.
whore.
Even more so in Tomcats. Have you ever seen that movie?
What movie?
It's called Tomcats. It was like a very bad, like, you know, knock-on type movie for American Pie. Like there was a series of movies that were like raunchy teen comedies, and Tomcats came out after that. Jerry O'Connell was in it.
I did not.
And he plays a male whore in the movie. And the one scene that's hilarious, and it's funny because it fits into this film, is that he starts dating this redheaded librarian, and he tells the guys that he wants to date because he said that those quiet girls are always the freaks. Well, he finds out. He fucks around and he finds out because she takes him home and she attaches him to like this bed. And then like he thinks he's going to get some light, you know, BDSM. He gets full on BDSM because she's like comes back in. She's dressed head to toe in full dominatrix gear. The bed, like, you know, like at a push of a button changes to where it's like a, you know, on the wall, like it moves. And then her grandma, which is so nasty, walks in a dominatrix gear too and says that she's going to join in the fun, and he's like screaming. And it's funny because the way that he's tied up is exactly the way that he's tied up in this movie.
Oh my God. Which, I mean, they read books, guys. Like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
It's funny you said he was a whore because in that movie he's a male whore. Mm-hmm. And he gets his comeuppance in the fact that he meets a real freak and he's not ready for it. Joshua Jackson and Rebecca Gayheart would only a year later collaborate in another teen slasher, Urban Legend, which we will be covering at some point. Mm-hmm. And highly influenced by the success of the Scream films, and even faced accusations of being ripoffs of this movie, which not unfair to say the ripoffs. So get this: Tobey Maguire was offered the role of Mickey.
God, that's so. It would be so unexpected.
It would.
But I could see it. I think Tobey Maguire has the acting chops.
He does have the acting chops. I don't know how I feel about that because he wouldn't have played the, you know, good looking, you know, jokey best friend. He would have played, I feel like he would have taken a more serious, you know,
maybe
turn with Mickey, you know.
Yeah. I think that, what's his name though? The actor that did play Mickey, Timothy Olyphant.
Yeah.
He has a crazy look to him, almost like a Jack Nicholson. Crazy look.
Have you ever saw that movie? Another you know, teen sex comedy or whatever that came out later. The Girl Next Door. Did you ever see that one?
I think so, yeah.
I think is Eliza Cuthbert, I believe, is the actress that was in that one. And Timothy Olyphant goes from charming, like, you know, just regular guy to like friggin' like, you know, nasty psychopath in that movie, like in just a snap of a finger. Like,
wow.
It is perfect in that movie. Like how, like because it turns out he's like this scummy porn producer that like is like trying to hunt her down and like, you know, force her back into the movies or whatever to get his money out of her. And like, I mean, he goes from just, and like, cause I think the transition in the movie happens cause he's palling around with like the guy who's, you know, attracted to Liza, you know, like he's got that, you know, boyhood crush or whatever on her, and like they're palling around in that movie, and then like and they're sitting there laughing, and Timothy Olyphant's laughing with him, and all of a sudden Timothy Olyphant just takes and punches him right in the face, breaks his nose, blood everywhere, and then has like his face immediately changes. He stops what he's doing. He's like, you're giving me that fucking, just like, tell me where she's at and all this stuff. And it's like instant. Like, I mean, he really does have what you said, like that sinister side to it. So I don't know between the two of them, between him and Toby, who would have been better for that. I mean, if when it came down to it, I feel like he did the role well enough that it doesn't really matter, but Wes Craven deliberately sent the MPAA a more violent version of the film for the approval, expecting them to insist on trimming the scenes and toning down the gore, meaning he would be able to make minor tweaks to get the movie through. But to his surprise, they passed it with an R rating.
Wow. That's a horror comedy.
He gave them the more violent version, and they were like, all right.
Oh, my God.
A long-running and unconfirmed rumor was that Wes Craven and Sarah Michelle Gellar did not get along during the filming, with Gellar displaying diva-like behavior and such. The character of Sarah Darling in Scream 3, played by Jenny McCarthy, is possibly an unflattering parody of Gellar.
Wow.
So, Melissa Joan Hart, again, Candace Cameron Burr, and Ellen Pompeo were all considered for the role of Cece Cooper before Sarah Michelle Gellar was cast. Definitely not Melissa Joan Hart.
Yeah.
Candace Cameron, really? Like, she's always been like too sweet to really fit a character like that. I just don't see it. I don't know. Reese Witherspoon, who had already turned down the role of Sydney in Scream, was once again considered for the role of Cece.
I could see Reese Witherspoon as
Reese
Cece.
might have worked in that role.
Yeah, because she's supposed to be sweet enough that she's the designated driver in case anything happens to the girls, but also spicy enough that, she can fucking throw out a few curse words,
Yeah, right. Especially kind of give the ghost face his due right before she's thrown from the balcony. That would have fit her at the time, especially, too. Louis Arquette, who plays Chief Hartley, was the real-life father of David Arquette and father-in-law of Courtney Cox. Courtney Cox was married to David Arquette from 1999 to 2013, and Louis Arquette died in 2001.
Aww.
So at least, David got to work with his dad on the set, for a little bit.
Yeah.
Timothy Olyphant and Rebecca Gayheart would end up reuniting in Quentin Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It also starred a future cast member of the Scream franchise, Mikey Madison, who would appear as Madison in Scream 2022. Sarah Michelle Gellar and Joshua Jackson would later star in Cruel Intentions, as Catherine Murtaugh and Blaine Tuttle. However, they both share no scenes. Jerry O'Connell's, Derek Feldman's brother Charlie, also appears in Cruel Intentions. So Jerry O'Connell's brother was in that movie. It's like just the small world amongst all these movies. Like once they get like on that group, like they continuously get cast in movies, I feel like. Cameos in this movie to wrap it up. Matthew Lillard, at around 35 minutes, is in the background at a frat party. He's actually in the movie.
Wow.
Like, physically at the frat party. Selma Blair, who was in, who co-starred in Cruel Intentions, is the girl to whom Cece is talking on the phone, which is hilarious. And then Kevin Williamson, at around 13 minutes, is Cotton's interviewer on the television.
Oh, my God.
All right, Death Holler Awards. Sydney, not much to, same. Really good. I don't know what else to say about her in this. She fits. It's just that stupid moment that we'll get to in a minute. That's the only thing that I feel is a problem.
I don't think she's learned enough yet. She's still pretty fucking naive. If not, almost took a step back a little bit.
Just a little,
but to be fair, actually, for my dumb explanation to explain it away, she thought the killers were dead. So.
Yeah, that's true.
There was a somewhat of a comfort in that, so I get it.
Mickey and Nancy. Mickey's okay. I don't buy. I'm like you. I don't think Nancy's good.
Yeah, I'm not buying what she's selling.
Best kill, to me, it's Officer Richards. The pipe through the head. It's just different.
That's undisputed.
Best scream is Cece as she's being thrown off the roof.
Ugh, that was a plop of a landing, too.
Best killer motive. Mickey is just wanting to become famous, have a famous trial, and he's always had psychopathic tendencies, which is interesting. Nancy is just playing out revenge. It's the most boring one of the whole entire movies. How annoying is Doom Prophet? It's either Sydney or Dewey in this movie that's Doom Prophet. I don't know which of the two is more of the Doom Prophet in the movie. Neither one of them is annoying, but but they're not. I mean, I don't know. I guess they're just there. Like they don't.
Yeah, they definitely know something's in the water for sure.
Yeah. Best side character again, Randy.
Yeah.
It sucks that we lose him in this movie. It really does.
Yeah.
And dumbest moment in the entire fucking series is her going back to investigate Ghostface in the car because there is no reason why her friend even tells her that's dumb. Let's go.
They made it out. They had to climb over him to get out of this car that they were locked in, and still she manages to. It's her fault that her friend died.
Yeah, 100%. There's no reason. I mean, she got her friend killed, and that's one reason why at the end of the movie, I feel like that She Said song actually fits well is because of the fact that, like, I mean, if she didn't have trauma before, she has to have it after being the cause for her friend dying in this one. Like, I mean, because it was her mistake that got Hallie killed.
Yeah.
Anything else to say about before we just go to the next movie and wrap this first trilogy up?
No, let's move it along.
All righty. All right, the trilogy concludes, quote unquote, Scream 3 and 2000. They actually took some time between these movies, which is ridiculous because, as we'll get into it, this is the least Scream of all the Screams that have ever screamed. Tagline: the final Scream is going to be the loudest.
Was it?
It wasn't the final. It wasn't the loudest.
Yeah.
Wes Craven again, Kevin Williamson, characters in this movie because Aaron Kruger, which is funny because of the last name, did the screenplay. Aaron Kruger's the motherfucker that ruined this movie. If they would have stayed with Kevin Williamson, he would have turned out a better movie. I'm almost positive of it, but they didn't. But Kevin Williamson was too busy, if I remember right, still working on Dawson's Creek, and they said we can't wait on you any longer, so they went ahead and got Aaron Kruger to do the movie, and he's the reason why it's so slap-shod together, you know.
Oh, Kevin, how did that work out for you? No, I'm just kidding. Probably pretty good, actually.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he came back for the fourth one, and it's a dramatic improvement, so that should tell you something. Marco Beltrami, again for the music, had a budget of $40 million, so it's the highest of these first three. Not shown in the movie, sadly. And then the box office, $161.8 million.
Yeah, but they're crying all the way to the bank still. That's still a pretty decent turnaround.
But the reason this one is people automatically, the first two were good enough. They were like, sure, I'm in for a third.
Yeah, why the fuck not?
Yeah. Principal players, Neve Campbell again, Sidney Prescott, Final Girl. Jeff Brockton plays Ghostface in this one, and a lone Ghostface.
Oh yeah,
we'll get into the controversy on that one because it's impossible. But in the movie, he is the lone slasher. He went on to do stunt work on Stranger Things and an Interview with a Vampire TV series that just came out.
Nice.
So he's still working. Scott Foley plays Roman Bridger, Sidney's half brother, the director of Stab 3, and the worst Ghostface in the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
He was from Dawson's Creek. Hilarious. There's those ties. True Blood and Grey's Anatomy. And Grey's Anatomy come up quite a bit because most of the actors and actresses that are in this show or these movies from here on out were in Grey's Anatomy at some point.
Oh, wow.
That was the adult version of Dawson's Creek in more ways than one. David Arquette's back playing Dewey Riley. This time he's a bodyguard and a Hollywood consultant.
Ooh.
Courtney Cox comes back as Gail Weathers, still cutthroat, still famous. Jamie Kennedy comes back for a cameo. He's dead, but he's not forgotten.
Aww.
Patrick Dempsey, speaking of
Grey's Anatomy.
Plays Frank Kincaid, the police detective and Sydney's love interest and eventual husband.
Wait,
in the series.
What? I didn't.
Yeah,
what?
It's revealed in part 5 that she's still married to him.
Oh my God.
Yep. Kelly Rutherford plays Cotton's girlfriend, Christine Hamilton.
That was a good scene.
Yep. Liev Schreiber comes back and plays Cotton Weary one last time as a talk show host. Jenny McCarthy Wahlberg plays Sarah Darling, the Sarah Michelle Gellar stand-in, as we previously mentioned. And then Patrick Warburton plays Stephen Stone, Jennifer's bodyguard, and Jennifer Jolie's bodyguard. And he's obviously known as Brock, the voice of Brock Sampson, played the live-action Tick, and he was Kronk in the Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, shit.
He's got that deep voice that gives him a lot of voice acting roles. Matt Kiesler plays Tom Prinz, the Dewey Doofus stand-in. Emily Mortimer plays Angelina Tyler, Sydney stand-in, and Red Herring. We'll get to that one because she should have been the other Ghostface. Dion Richmond plays Tyson Fox, the stand-in for Randy. Parker Posey plays Jennifer Jolie, stands in for Gail. She was also in Blade Trinity. She kind of played like a bitchy, almost dominatrix vampire that was to Ryan Reynolds in that movie, playing Hannibal King. Lance Henriksen, great horror actor, plays John Milton, the studio exec, the Harvey Weinstein stand-in.
Oh, God.
in all the bad ways.
Yes.
I mean, they even mentioned what he did to Maureen Prescott.
Oh, yes.
One of my favorite movies, Pumpkinhead, Aliens, Near Dark, The Quick and the Dead, Millennium. He's been in such good genre movies. Lance Henriksen's just classic. And then rounding it out, we got Carrie Fisher, Bianca Burnett, but she is not that chick from Star Wars. She lets you know
no,
that
that's so fun. I know. I love that.
Synopsis. Cotton Weary and his girlfriend are murdered prior to his upcoming cameo in the third Stab movie. This places everyone on set on high alert and prompts Gail Weathers to look into another copycat killer. Meanwhile, Detective Kincaid is searching for Sidney Prescott because a picture of her mother was found at the Weary crime scene. One by one, the cast of Stab 3 is picked off according to the order in which they die in the script. Snotty starlets will get stabbed, dumb actors get blown the fuck up, and Gail has to deal with the worst horror imaginable, another version of herself. The best scream is always the last one. Just hope the last one isn't your own.
Cheesy.
Yeah, that's one of their taglines. Yep. Body count 10. So down from the last movie.
Yeah.
Christine Hamilton, stabbed in the back by Roman Bridger. Cotton Weary, stabbed in the head by Roman Bridger. This Ghostface has the most kills of any single Ghostface, just so you know, because he's the single Ghostface, quote unquote. Sarah Darling, thrown through glass and stabbed in the back by Roman.
It was very Jason Voorhees-y.
Yes. Stephen Stone is stabbed in the back, beat with a frying pan.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Prinz is blown the fuck up, which is the best kill in probably any of the movies.
Yes, very cinematic.
Angelina Tyler is stabbed in the chest. Just standard fare. Tyson Fox is stabbed, neck broken, and then thrown off 2 stories. Jennifer Jolie is stabbed in the stomach. John Milton has his throat slit. And then Roman Bridger himself is stabbed a few times and then shot in the head by Dewey Riley. Quotes, Randy, well, if you're watching this tape, it means as I feared, I did not survive these killings here at Windsor College. And that giving up my virginity to Karen Kolchak at the video store was probably not a good idea. Gail Weathers, hey, are you Bianca Burnett? No. Jennifer Jolie, but you look just, and then Bianca Burnett. Like her, I've been hearing it all my life. And then Jennifer Jolie, it's uncanny. And then Bianca Burnett, sourly. I was up for Princess Leia. I was this close. So who gets it? The one who sleeps with George Lucas.
That's fucking hilarious, which is actually pretty terrible because technically Carrie Fisher she was a teenager, I think.
Yeah, she was really young in that first movie.
So I love that she was able to go with that. I don't know that would sit well with today's times.
No, it's untenable stuff. They're trying to cancel Tropic Thunder again. Have you heard that? In the news?
Fuck off! It's like South Park. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
That fucking Tropic Thunder is a fucking film darling, and you will not touch it.
Well, the good thing is that instead of bowing down like most of them do, Ben Stiller's actually came out and said he's not apologizing. He said he apologized back in the day. He said he's never apologizing again for it, especially now with the accusations, because they're not even mad at Robert Downey Jr. for the blackface. They're mad. They are, but that's not the main. They're going after Stiller for playing Simple Jack.
Oh my
because
God,
of him making fun of handicapped people.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
And he's got a right point. He said, I'm not making fun of handicapped people. I'm making fun, if you watch the movie, of the actors who are too dumb not to, in their portrayal of handicapped people. And he said, I'm proud of the movie. And he said, you can fuck off. It's basically what it amounts to.
Which is funny, because it's like they couldn't find one thing. They couldn't get by with the blackface. So then they had to go after something else. Like next it's going to be misogyny,
some of the stuff that Tom Cruise says is Les Grossman is too misogynistic, or somehow it's co-opting. The fact that he's got he's into rap and stuff is co-opting culture or whatever they say.
The black people fucking love those characters in that film. I have not heard one black person that's like, I'm offended.
Well, and they even have it in the movie. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, when Robert Downey Jr. looks at, I love that line. I know it's a tangent, but I could go on forever about we should probably have some show just about Tropic Thunder, because I love that movie so fucking much. But even though it's got horror elements, because there is some good gore in the movie, but like where he looks at Ben Stiller and he's like, "What do you mean, you people?"
Yeah.
And then Al Pacino behind him is like, "What do you mean, you people?"
Yeah.
I love that line because it's directly calling it out.
Yeah.
Anyways, getting back to this one, I have to round it out because they're in this movie.
Yes.
It's unofficially an Askewniverse movie. Jay, holy shit, Silent Bob, it's that TV news chick, Connie fucking Chung.
Yes.
Hey, Connie, how's Maury? And then Gail gives him the finger, and he's like, Jay, and then Jay's like, dude, I think she likes me. Did you see how she was looking at me?
I loved it.
It's a good little cameo, but at the same time, I don't know. To me, it represents everything bad about the movie because it's like so Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be in a meta sense, but at the same time, there's a certain innocence in a way, and a certain something different about the first movie, a different vibe that they never really got back. And this one is the total opposite end of it. It's like, if you made the most Hollywood version of Scream, this is the movie that you would make, getting into it, the visuals, the death scenes were decent.
Oh, yeah.
The explosion, a little bit of wonky CGI there, but it's not terrible.
I didn't catch it, so I mean,
it's just at the edges of the fire. It's got a little bit of that pixelation bullshit that goes on with like some of that late '90s or the early 2000s CGI. Ghostface, I mean, everything's fine in it. Something I thought was weird about this movie is that it's funny that in part 2 they comment on Gail smoking, because I feel like every fucking person in this movie is shown smoking at one point, especially when they're in Parker Posey's Jennifer Jolie's house, she's chain smoking. That guy who plays Tom Prince or whatever is smoking, it's just it's weird. It's like the only movie in the franchise that is that way.
Product placement, just like I was talking, I didn't even bring it up for part 2, how Diet Pepsi specifically was pretty prominent in the second film. Cigarettes was prominent in this. As the film franchise goes on, I'll tell you the next company that is in there pretty well, Toyota.
Oh, that's true.
Toyota Camrys, Toyota Prius.
The vehicles.
Yes. Yeah. So I was like, holy crap, look at this.
Yeah, R.J. Reynolds must have got their money's worth out of the Weinsteins on this
one,
for all the cigarettes in it.
Oh, my God. Tell me about it.
Let's see. Story wise, it's got the worst story in all the series. Like that retcon of having Roman go back. I mean, I don't mind the stuff with Maureen, even though it's some fucked up retcon in its own sense.
Yeah,
having her be like this,
Hollywood whore,
wannabe movie star. That was, basically had Weinstein, which is ironic given who made this movies. But anyways, but that whole thing with Roman going back and taking away Billy and Stu's involvement a little bit from the original kill of Maureen.
Trying to say that he orchestrated it.
Yes, I hate that. I fucking hate it because it ruins the original Scream in a sense. If you care enough, which I don't, I just let this one go. But if you care enough about the series, this one technically ruins the first movie, which is it's shit, and for doing that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see it completely as a retcon from my perspective. I was like, I heard out his story and I was like, okay, he kind of gave him the push. And like I said, in terms of Billy Loomis, I said he had some psycho tendencies already. And it's like these people obviously find each other. I could see that being, another thing to kind of push over the edge any more than he already kind of was. I think I hated the storyline worse in part 2 than I hated this one. I'm not saying this one is good. I'm going to put that out there. I'm just saying I think it was better than the second one.
Here, I'll give you this. The plot holes with Nancy Loomis and her suddenly caring about her son are way worse.
Yes.
Than the Roman Bridger ones. I think that it takes something away from the evilness of both of Stu and Billy by having somebody else prompt them to do the Maureen kill. There's something more vicious about the two of them doing it on their own versus it was a movie producer and they were all about those movies. Like I said, I was able to accept it. I could have done without it, meaning I do appreciate the first original story better, obviously. And it's something that I kind of refuse to kind of get out of my mind anyway. So they could have done whatever they wanted in this film. I was like, Billy and Stu were still highly motivated by their own means, Yeah. I'll tell you what I think about this movie. The one scene where Randy's sister comes in, gives him the tape, and then Randy pops up is the highlight of the movie for me. The movie improves 1,000% when Randy's on screen again.
Yeah, that is true. Like I said, he's still, even after the third film, even after death, he is still serving his purpose in this film and makes himself still relevant, which I love.
I love that on there where he not only answers Dewey
directly.
I love that part of it. It's like, no, he's like, they're responding back and forth. But then the whole thing where he's fighting with his roommate, he's like, 5 more fucking minutes. Geez, just, I love all that little back and forth. Jamie Kennedy he knocked it out of the park on that character. I love that character so much.
I want to say
one thing I don't like about this.
Oh,
go ahead.
The story. I want to continue with the story real quick because one thing Noah had said is he's like, I'm not buying that this guy is this top movie producer or up and coming movie producer, if you will, and he's able to keep his sanity together as long as he does, to be able to pull off all this stuff. But I'm like, he's a fucking movie producer. Like sometimes they could be actors too. Again, not saying that this is the best storyline by any means. What Noah's saying does make sense. Like you have to be. How do you not become unhinged and just fucking lose it?
Here's the thing though. How many stories have we heard about how weird fucking Hollywood is?
That is fucking true.
Whether you want to believe the conspiracy stuff, which goes way to the other side, or just the random stories that we hear about Hollywood, you can be eccentric, is what they'll label it.
Yeah.
Roman Polanski, that guy was a fucking sicko. And then or Harvey Weinstein himself. Shit gets by in Hollywood that would not normally. So Roman could have been acting like a total psychopath, and people like, yeah, he's a producer. That's what they do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That didn't bother me at all. I never even considered that a possibility.
Yeah, I hadn't either until Noah had said it, and I was like, well, maybe. But then I was like, you're right. It's fucking Hollywood, I was just thinking that, he's probably just a good actor on top of he knows what good acting is,
Yeah, I agree with you on that stuff. The one thing I don't like, another thing I don't like about this movie, they keep Sydney out of it for a lot of the movie, first of all. And then secondly, the scenes they do show with Sydney prior to this, none of that stuff with her mom being a ghost in her dreams
that was
or whatever
weird.
the fuck that was.
Yeah.
It did not gel with anything else that goes on either before or after in the movies.
No, I know they tried to bring some kind of relevance to the fact that Roman was trying to use her mom's ghost, but it's like, how did he know that would affect her as bad? He didn't know that she was at her house being haunted by her mom's spirit. And not only that, being evilly haunted by her mom's spirit. There was no good intentions with that. Usually when there's a spirit haunting, in this particular case, it felt like it would have been more of a warning to her,
It was like an evil haunting. The way they portrayed it, like she was almost, she was almost being attacked at one point by her mom's ghost. And even if it was a dream, the thing that didn't sit with me, if you want to say it's trauma, there was a much better way they could have introduced like the trauma element and played that up. And her mom, and then maybe having her flash to seeing like the crime scenes of what happened to Maureen afterward, and then play it in that way, like she's remembering her mom, like her mom's on her mind, she's remembering her that way, and then work it in. They didn't have to go that ghost angle is so it does not work.
No ghost actually looked like that either.
They would try to go the white woman version of Ghost with her.
They made her go like white woman, dark under eyes, dead. I don't know. Like if you're there was nothing about Sydney's trauma or anything about her mom's history that would have made me think that that's how her mom would appear to her.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking right now. It's like if they were going to have her in the movie, like Sydney's memory of her mother would not be of that. Like she didn't she was not had no involvement in her mom's death whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, so she had no guilt over that or shouldn't have any guilt over it.
Yeah, her mom had a sketchy past, but she had other shit going on in her life she had to worry about.
And her mom was her own person. Like I know people sometimes blame themselves, but like what as a child could you blame for your parents stepping out on your other parent? Yeah. If anything, she would be angry at her mom, and the dream would have been reversed. Like she would have been like screaming at her or something. And they played it the other way. Like her mom was attacking her because she didn't do her job as a daughter. And it's like, no.
Well, she even says in this film, she has a chit chat with her dad, and she's like, hey, if mom hadn't have done all this, we probably wouldn't be going through this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't. Kruger, whenever he made this part up, didn't think the motivation of the character through at all. Like,
no, he also didn't think of what type of character that Sydney was. He obviously didn't take her into consideration because she's way stronger of a character. Things can still haunt you no matter how strong you are. It's just not going to be in an aspect like that that's going to really shake her up like the way it did. She, like I said, she's got other shit going on. And then not only that, but then for Roman to be able to like reproduce the same exact thing almost to terrify her, when she's in the production set of what is Woodsboro or where she used to live. That was a little off the path.
It was a little on the nose too. I mean, it was like, we're going to make you relive your trauma exactly, by putting you right back in the scene.
That is true.
It's just one of those things. And then I didn't like the love triangle that they created between Jennifer Jolie, Gail Weathers, and Dewey.
Yeah, that was weird.
The reason I say that is because I don't feel like they sold it enough for it to be a triangle. Like they didn't give enough time between Jennifer and Dewey to sell that being even an issue. Like I never once felt like he was, not on Gail's side. And if that was their intent, that's fine. But they tried. There was one scene there when Jennifer's punched by Gail that they were trying to sell the fact that there was a love triangle going on, and I'm like, no, you didn't establish that well enough for that to have been that way.
Not at all. So. Are we still on the story?
Yeah. I mean, we can move on. I'm just, it's worth ragging on because this 100%. Is the worst story of the bunch.
It is. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the story. So we talked about Sydney and her past mom trauma.
The actors in the fake stab movie, a lot of them are wasted. They set up a lot with Sydney stand-in that didn't get paid off, and we'll get into that in the trivia, that there was more there, but it was cut. They said Tyson's wasted. Like what point does the character Tyson Fox, the Randy, stand in? Like he doesn't even serve a purpose in the movie. Like he's there 1 minute, gone for most of the movie, comes back, gets stabbed, like or cut and his neck broke and everything else. Like he serves literally no purpose. Yeah.
Not memorable.
The same thing with the Sarah Michelle Gellar stand-in, Gene McCarthy, just in and out of the movie. I mean, which horror movies do have quick deaths, so hers is forgivable because she's just, like one more body to add to the pile. That's, whatever. She wasn't followed that much in the movie, so it don't really matter. And then, I feel like the character of Stephen Stone, Warburton, has played a little too comedic for what I think the character should have been in the movie. Like, I mean, he's a little, I get, and it's because Warburton's like a pretty good comedic actor. I mean, he plays Joe on Family Guy of all things, but I mean, but it's just, there's a little too much comedy from him. And I feel like if he'd been more of a gruff character, and given who might have played him here in the trivia here in a second, it would have been a totally different way that it would have been portrayed, and I think it would have been better. But I'll leave it at that on that part of it. Anything else you want to add? I'm sorry about.
No, do not apologize because that was all necessary.
It's just it's watching it, and I'm just like, now I know why this is the one movie I've never. I mean, just to have it for completionist sake, there's the steelbook of this is coming out this year, and I'm finally going to buy it. This is the one movie that I've never really, outside of buying it in a pack with other movies that that's the only reason I've ever purchased this movie. Like, I had no desire to go back and revisit this movie otherwise. Like, it's just like the blip in the series.
Okay, in perspective of these three films and just these three films alone, they progressively get worse. I mean, Scream 1 started out this icon. Nobody's going to touch that. Okay? They're just not. And then it got a little bit worse with or a little bit bad with Scream 2 because it wasn't bad at all in Scream 1. And then it got a little bit worse in Scream 3. I will say this, though. Yes, he was a lone, I was supposed to say Scarface, Ghostface, but he also is a cinematic movie producer. He knew the areas that he was in like the back of his hand where he could do what he was doing. He was also a bigger man that probably had the strength to do some of what he was doing. He had the element of surprise on his side. And I still buy a single male Ghostface such as this character who's trying to produce a horror movie. He's making a real life horror movie. I still buy that more than any females that have attempted to be Ghostface.
It definitely some of the ones that comes later. I mean, of the I mean, we'll get to it when we discuss 4 and 5, especially because of the females that are in that one. But yeah, there's more to it there's keen-eyed fans that have went back and said that it's literally impossible for him to have been in all the places he needed to be to kill everybody in this movie.
And I don't disagree, but I could see how they could, because you got to remember, it's not something that's happening in split seconds. It could be over a span of minutes. It could be a span over a half hour. It's all we're seeing is the scenes that matter. They're not going to make it as long as it takes for him to huff and puff his way to one other side of the house or whatever. And he's got a lot of secret passages he can go through.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, but I think the thing that they were talking about is like the way that he would have been, like there was 2 different locations in the movie that he was back and forth between, and that's
the jail.
They said that it couldn't have been 2 of them.
Yeah, the jail and then the party. Although they said he had been released, they didn't say what time he had been released. But I did catch that where something happened, and he was supposedly in jail at the time, being questioned by the police. Again, the only explanation I have is the fact that they said, well, he was released, but they didn't specify what time or that he was just released. They're just like, well, they had nothing on him, so they had to let him go. And it's like, wow, he fucking zoomed it, Hey, look, in the movie Clueless, like they said, everywhere takes 15 minutes to get to in Los Angeles. That's
true.
100% not true. I have been there, okay? And I have driven there, and it does not.
Acting in the movie, I don't feel like there was any bad acting in the movie. I don't feel like it. Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Jenny McCarthy was intentionally bad.
Yeah, the Prince guy is bad, but that's deliberate. I mean, for the part that he's playing, so there's nothing really there. Music, maybe this is the one that's got Creed in it. There's one of these that has like the soundtrack that's like way more out there than the other ones, and I'm pretty sure it's this movie. Like, listening to it.
Yeah.
Are you ready for trivia? Kind of blast through these and kind of wrap this whole thing up.
Let's do it.
Courtney Cox remarked about her relationship with then-husband David Arquette in relation to the Scream franchise. I was just flirting with David on the first one. I was sleeping with him on the second, and we shared a trailer in the third.
Whore.
Patrick Dempsey was hired the day before shooting began. He had one night to learn 3 big dialogue-heavy scenes.
Wait, what? Say that one again?
He was hired the day before the shooting began, and he literally had one night to learn 3 big dialogue-heavy scenes.
And what actor was this?
Patrick Dempsey.
Oh my God.
McDreamy, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, he's a good seasoned actor, so.
Yeah, and that his ability to do that's probably what helped him on the show too.
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy. Throughout the film, Sydney can be seen wearing the Greek letters around her neck that were given to her by her boyfriend Derek in Scream 2 shortly before he was killed.
I did not fucking catch that.
That's a good little bit of continuity.
Yeah.
Between them. The house used during the climax where most of the killing takes place is the same house used as the school in Halloween H2O 20 years later.
Oh, shit. As a whole fucking school.
Yeah. Neve Campbell's contract allowed her to be on set for just 20 days, which is why Sydney has less screen time than any of the other films. As a result of her role being reduced, more emphasis was put on the supporting characters. Campbell's availability only amounted to 3 weeks in total, forcing the filmmakers to shoot around her schedule.
Get it, girl?
She was filming Drowning Mona, Party of Five during the production of this film, and because her Drowning Mona character had long streaked hair, Campbell had to wear a wig to play Sidney Prescott, which required 2 hours of application each morning.
2 hours to apply a wig? Have you seen the TikTok videos now? Fucking minutes, bitches.
Yeah, I know. I don't. It's weird.
It looked so real, though. I did not know it was a wig.
It was a good one.
Oh, it was definitely a good one. And fuck, how much money did they fucking pay her? What is the amount that she said I can fucking do this? Because I could never.
Yeah, her filming 3 different things at the same time, they better have been paying her damn good money, and I'm sure they were. That's probably where that bump up to the $40 million came from, is just paying her fees on, on top of everything else.
And you know what? Sorry, but she's worth it.
She is, yeah. Throughout this movie, the actors and actresses of Stab 3, the movie within the movie, complain about rewrites in 3 different scripts. The complaints actually originated with the real cast of the movie because of the frequent rewrites and 3 different endings of the actual Scream 3.
Yeah,
so it's a meta of a meta.
Meta of a meta, yeah. And you can't complain about that because I think that's great for being able to not give away the ending, which was a big thing around this time because the internet had really taken off at this point.
Yeah, it had, and it was like social media and stuff was its infancy, but I mean, it was getting there, and it was a real possibility that they could have, released it to the public. Kevin Williamson was unavailable to return to writing duties due to the scheduling conflicts with Dawson's Creek, The Faculty, Halloween H2O, and directing Teaching Miss Tingle.
God
damn, that's a lot on somebody's plate.
Yeah.
And some of those are really fucking good things. I mean,
I really like The Faculty.
Yes, it's a good movie. But he did write the outline for the film.
Okay.
Aaron Kruger all but ignored the outline, however.
Son of a bitch.
And his script was mostly written on the fly, with pages usually completed the day before they were filmed.
That's
he was literally
wild.
That explains this movie.
Yeah.
That explains it. I mean, the characters bore so little resemblance to their appearances in prior films that director Wes Craven had to do rewrites to get them to be, similar to their previous incarnations.
Holy shit.
Lee Schreiber insists that Colton Weary should remove his jacket in the opening sequence because he had been working out at the time and wanted to show off his physique.
Ooh, look at you.
In an interview tonight video, interview published in August 14th, 2020, David Arquette admitted that he was the one who had suggested then wife Courtney Cox cut her hair like Betty Page, thus giving rise to the infamous Scream 3 bangs. Fans hated the new look and derided it for years, which even led to a 10. And that's the first thing I fucking noticed when she walked on screen. I was like, what the fuck did she do to herself?
Those were not Betty Page bangs at all.
No, they're not. No.
Those are someone hacked her hair. Somebody took the Scream knife and fucking tried to cut her in the head and missed and got her bangs.
It's so fucking bad. Like, I mean, you go from her in part 2 and she's so smoking hot to this one just like 3 years later and she looks like she's aged 40 years because of her haircut.
Yeah,
it's bad.
And I'm with David Arquette. That could have looked good. It really, because she could have pulled that off had it been done right.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, she had the frame for the face that would have worked, but they didn't do it right.
I tried to do the Betty Page bangs. It did not work out for me at all. It wasn't like that, though.
Thankfully, for your sake. The only film in the series to feature Ghostface using a voice changer to imitate other voices perfectly as a way to mess with his victims. This was a source of criticism for viewers and critics, as the series had mostly been grounded in reality until this point, and such technology veered dangerously close to science fiction territory. They could actually do that in the new films now, because I think deep fakes could get them what they wanted, because those deep fakes of Joe Biden, Trump, and Obama playing video games are fucking on point.
Yeah.
Like,
it's scary.
But back in the day, no, this was totally stupid for that time period.
Yeah.
Sydney was written in earlier drafts of the script to have been suicidal. In addition to suffering nightmares and PTSD, there was a scene in the script where Sydney goes to the bathroom and checks out her scars on her wrist from a failed suicide attempt, but this was written out in later drafts. I don't know how I feel about this, because I almost feel like that's that would have better fit her character at this point than what they introduced in the movie. But it's very dark.
It's dark
for the movie they were making too. So tonally it wouldn't have fit, but it actually would have been a better thing for her character, I think.
I hate to agree with you, but like I think that it would have worked. You know, she has been. You cannot deny or turn the other way on the fact that she has been through some major shit. And I could totally empathize and understand why she would want a way out.
Yeah, she's lost every one of her friends and family. Up to the only person she's got left is her dad, Dewey, and Gail. And Gail's not even her friend. She barely stands Gail.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's just psychologically, that fits way better than that fucking ghost. I mean, it really does. At one point, Gail makes a comment that Jennifer Jolie was in a relationship with Brad Pitt. Coincidentally, the two actresses are characters named after, Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie, both of whom were married to Brad Pitt.
Wow.
At certain points after this film's release.
Yes.
After. So this is like life imitating art.
Absolutely.
Folks.
Oh, my God.
The Stab cast are all named after actors who were popular around the time of the film's release. The character named Jennifer Jolie is a combination of Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie. Angelina Tyler is Angelina Jolie and Liv Tyler.
Oh, nice.
Tom Prince is a combination of Tom Cruise and Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yep.
Tyson Fox is probably derived from the names of Tyson Beckford and Jamie Foxx.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sarah Darling is an unflattering parody of Sarah Michelle Gellar, who we've said before. And the reason that she's the stand-in is because Darling was the derogatory nickname that Wes Craven had for Sarah Michelle Gellar.
That's fucking awesome.
Jamie Lee Curtis was actually offered the role of Bianca Burnett, but she turned it down.
Boo.
That would have fit better than as much as I like Carrie Fisher's little role in this. Having Jamie Lee Curtis be the one that they're talking to would have been perfect.
Have you seen Jamie Lee Curtis? Because this is technically a comedic role. That particular character was a comedic role. Have you seen Jamie Lee Curtis in the most recent Reno 911 reboot?
I haven't, no.
Oh my God, it's one episode. You need to try to catch it. I caught it on my Roku, but she plays like this horror convict that escapes, but she's pretending she's a cop giving training, and she's literally sleeping with every cop in the precinct. And it's just so funny because like she's such a good actress. It doesn't seem cheesy at all. She does such a good job playing a pervert that I'm like, she can do comedic, obviously, you know?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you this. So did you watch Scream Queens, the very first episode yet?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay. When you watch that, she's playing the college dean, and she is sleeping with everybody in that particular role. It's hilarious that you mentioned that, because she's playing the same exact character, and it's also comedic.
Oh my God. I love it. She's such a whore.
Yeah, and it's funny because she played a prostitute, and especially Trading Places. But I want to say, didn't she play one in A Fish Called Wanda? I think she did play it was, if not a prostitute, it was somebody close to
she was
that,
promiscuous
area.
at
Yes.
least. So
Yeah. I think that was her trying to get away from her virginal Laurie Strode character, though.
yeah.
Christopher Walken was considered for the role of John Milton. I think I like Lance Henriksen better.
Yeah.
Because Christopher Walken's a little too weird to pull that character. Henriksen has enough of he can play creepy enough to where he sold the Weinstein of it all, but I don't think Walken, even though he can play, we already talked about in Prophecy, he plays a good bad guy, but like he plays an odd bad guy.
Yeah,
like,
he does.
I don't think it would have worked as well with him in that role.
I have to agree with you.
Stone Cold Steve Austin was the one that was considered for the role of Stephen Stone instead of Warburton.
Which clearly Stephen Stone was named after him.
Yes.
You know, and not only that, but I totally could see that.
And if he would have played the part, he would have been way more direct and like less comedic than Warburton was in that character.
Yeah.
I think I would have preferred it with Stone Cold, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, Stone Cold's not the best actor. We've already talked about Bautista's probably one of the best wrestler turn actors.
Yeah.
But Stone Cold can play a good dramatic role. He's been in a few films that I've seen him in, and he can play that character pretty well.
Yeah.
Paul Walker, Josh Hartnett, James Vanderbeek, and Jonathan L. Jackson were considered for the role of Tom Prince.
Nope. And I will tell you why. Because the actor that played, Tom Prince, looked just like Doofy from Scary Movie.
He did.
At the end when he shows his sexy self. Yeah, I was like, is that the same actor? And so, yeah, it's a no from me.
Yeah, just for that connection. Although I think Vanderbeek could have played the snark enough to, like he could have carried the character the way it was supposed to be played.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him in stuff after that. It's just he wouldn't have. Like you said, you would lose the connection to Scary Movie, which was hilarious. David Boreanaz was considered for the role of Mark Kincaid instead of Patrick Dempsey.
I could see it, and he is because Patrick Dempsey looks a little bit. He's still a young guy in this film, but he still looks way older than Sidney. And I don't know.
He also there's something about Patrick Dempsey, that I can't like. He's got one of those faces that you can tell he naturally, or at least he progressed. Maybe this is a Jensen Ackles thing, going back to that conversation, but he's got a face that makes it look like he smiles a lot, whereas Boreanaz has got more of the frowning face. And I would have bought Boreanaz better as like a police detective versus Dempsey, because Dempsey looks a little too friendly to be a police detective, in my opinion.
I will say this about Dempsey, though. He did play a good character that looked guilty at times.
Yeah, that's true.
When they accused him of being guilty.
Enough of the red herring.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that worked out. So I'm not gonna lie. I'm not disrespecting Dempsey's portrayal. I just definitely could see David Boreanaz in the role.
Yeah, I think he would have played it more serious, because that's a character he's always played, like Bones, Angel. He's the serious actor, or even in Valentine, as we discussed. Alicia Silverstone was offered the role of Angelina Tyler, but turned it down, ironically. In Scream 2022, it was revealed in universe that Silverstone was the one who played the stab version of Tatum, originally played by Rose McGowan.
That's so funny. It's so funny how they bring those ties right back,
Yeah, they just go back and they loop in the real life stuff to the movies. Claire Danes, Christy Clark, Allison Hannigan, Kelly Martin, and Eliza Dushku were considered for the role of Angelina Tyler. Not Hannigan.
No,
not
definitely
Hannigan.
Not Danes.
Dushku might have done well.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'm thinking Dushku definitely.
I think that, if you're talking about the person who was supposed to be the red herring and possibly the other, or the Sydney stand-in, I think Dushku actually would have been the best.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Maybe better than the one they got in the movie.
Yeah, because the girl who played Angelina Tyler looked like a tall, skinny model. She didn't look like Sydney at all, and I know that doesn't always work out when you're doing films like this, but it's like they didn't even try.
Yeah, they didn't even attempt to get somebody. She had the innocent look, but I don't feel like Sid ever looked that innocent as the character the stand-in for her was trying to look like. She wasn't that baby faced. I never got that from Sydney. Liv Tyler, Kate Winslet, Shannon Doherty, Charisma Carpenter, and Jennifer Connelly were all considered for the role of Christine Hamilton, Cotton Weary's girlfriend.
Maybe Kate Winslet. I don't know.
Charisma Carpenter seems like she would have been too young because
maybe, yeah.
She would have, I mean, like, I know she was like early 20s, but like she still had a very youthful appearance, and like,
which is why she could play a teenager for so fucking long.
Yeah, so I don't know that she would have looked old enough, like the actress who actually did play Christine. And then Liv Tyler, I mean, she was super young looking too, because it was around. It's funny that her and Alicia Silverstone were considered because they were both like in Aerosmith's videos around this time. I feel like,
so
or right before this.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel
Shannon
like though
Doherty,
the actress that did play Christine Hamilton, I think she looked a little too old for the character.
Well, I don't know. I kind of feel like because Cotton Weary was kind of an older. I mean, Liev Schreiber looked older too, so they needed somebody, unless they wanted him to kind of go on the younger side. And Shannon Doherty might have been the only one of this bunch that might have had the face that would have pulled off like an age in his range or something.
Yeah, that's a little bit closer.
Benicio del Toro was considered for the role of Roman Bridger.
Love Benicio del Toro. I mean, I have a child named after him, but I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
Yeah.
Getting the generic white dude that can blend into the background was way better, because Benicio has a very definite look to him.
Oh, he does. Yeah.
He's a great actor. I'm not, but he would have stood out. Like, you'd been like, that's a bad guy.
I could have seen him playing the executive, that the Weinstein version. I could have seen him doing that kind of.
Yeah, well, they needed, but you got to remember what age he would have been at the time of this movie. He would have been young. He would have probably played a good. He would have played that Stone character decently, I think, because he has that imposing look about him when he wants to. So he could have played the bodyguard pretty well.
Yeah,
but, not Roman.
Yeah,
he would have stood out too much.
I don't think
Rachel True, Kerry Russell, Alyssa Milano, and Denise Richards were considered for the role of Christine Hamilton. Now, first off, it's hilarious, Alyssa Milano, given her history with Rose McGowan. And then secondly, Denise Richards and her history, or at least the co-starring in Wild Things, that they were even considered. I think that's hilarious.
Christine Hamilton again, because the other girls were also Liv Tyler, Kate Winslet, Shannon Doherty. All of these women were considered for Christine. Jesus Christ. She dies. Well, I guess, okay, never mind. It's the Drew Barrymore factor.
Yeah, it was the Drew Barrymore. I think, if you're talking about this group, Kerry Russell,
100%, especially having seen her. She is a very underrated actress.
She would have probably been Kerry Russell's in Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
She would probably been the best pick of all these alternatives, I think, period.
And she was very well known for the time. She was, if not more, especially because of her acting chops, where she was just as known for the Noxzema shit, as, what's her name? The other Noxzema chick.
They're all bleeding in at this. Oh, you're talking about Gayheart. Yeah,
yes, Gayheart. And talking about that is that was just very iconic for these times. So her face alone in the movies and the commercials, she was very well known. She would have been a perfect person to die at the beginning.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, she would have stood up more than the actress they got to play Christine.
Okay,
honestly.
Hang tight, Reverend. Got something going on at the door. I'll be right back.
So next we have potential casting: Tara Reid, Monica. I didn't give a last name, so maybe that's what she went by. And Allie Larder were considered for the role of Sarah Darling. At this point in time, Allie Larder and Tara Reid, either one would have been fine for a stand-in for Jenny McCarthy's character.
100%. I go with Tara Reid. Think she was more iconic for the time.
Yeah, and she was pretty well known coming right off of the American Pie movies. That would have stood out pretty well. Although I think it was around this time too that Allie Larder got big with her role in, speaking of Vanderbeek, with Varsity Blues. So I don't know who would have been, more of a standout name, honestly.
Yeah.
Going back to Cruel Intentions, Selma Blair and then Terry Hatcher were considered for the role of Jennifer Jolie. I like Parker Posey in the character. She's got enough of the Gale energy that I don't really. Terry Hatcher could have pulled it off. Terry Hatcher, I feel like, could be an alt world.
Yes.
Gale Weathers, Courtney Cox, Gale Weathers, 100%, because she's played that character before. Hell, she played it for years on The Adventures of Lois and Clark. I mean, that's the character she played.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. And she was younger at this time, because I'm thinking that she's older. Well, she was definitely older than Selma Blair. I think that with Parker Posey, they were going for a younger version of Gale Weathers. And that's why I think Selma Blair could have pulled it off, because she could have been a younger version. And Selma Blair can play a bitch. So.
Oh, 100%. She plays one in Cruel Intentions, but I don't know. There was something about her, like she didn't quite have the full-on Renee Zellweger squint, but she had something going on that was like that, and that was slightly off-putting. Like, I don't. That's the only thing that would throw her off. She could have played the bitch part, but I don't think she could have stood in as much as Gale as what Parker Posey did.
But you're 100% right about Terry Hatcher. Just looking. She looks like a Hollywood actress that would play the true life version of a character that looks like that person, you know?
Oh yeah, she would have played Gale in the Hollywood version in that universe.
Yeah.
The made for TV version, at least. Téa Leoni was a strong considered for the role of Jennifer Jolie, and was called back several times during casting, but filmmakers ultimately decided Parker Posey was more suitable and was cast instead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Parker Posey on this one. Téa Leoni has always had an older, mature-looking face. Not older as in old, but just mature woman face.
And something else about Téa Leoni, back in this time period especially, she was known way more as like a very sexual actress. Like, her roles, even I feel like every role she was in like had some element of like, and like I never like the character in the movie, and they could have went that way if they wouldn't lean into it, but I feel like the character in the movie needed to be slightly goofy, but then like also like annoying, and like I've never really got that from Téa Leoni in either role. She's more like a seductress type, actress in like most of the movies she's ever been in.
Yeah.
Especially like Bad Boys, like that type of character she played in, movies like that.
I just don't remember her in that. I don't remember her in a lot of things, but I'm looking at her, movies and everything, and I'm just like, God, how do I not remember her in half of these?
Well, I was a young man when she was in her prime.
Oh,
so
that makes sense. Yes.
I remember her very fondly. I'll just put it that way. Fairuza Balk, speaking of somebody I remember fondly too, was considered for the role of Martha Meeks, Randy's sister. And it's funny, we mentioned her a while ago, since she's one of the few, craft castmates to Neve Campbell that never really went on to this movie series. I don't know how I feel about that, because I feel like she's that weird kind of pretty that I don't feel like would fit for Randy's sister. Like, I buy the girl that they got to play his sister as his sister. She's got that geeky look to her.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You know who she could play? She could play like a psycho aunt or somebody related to fucking Wednesday Addams.
Oh, she definitely could.
Yeah.
Like she could play an Addams family member for sure.
But not Addams, not specifically. I'm talking about the actress that plays Wednesday.
Oh, Jenna Ortega. Okay,
yes.
I got you.
Even though she's not Latina, she has got some weird, like Jenna Ortega has that huge weird smile. She claims she never smiles. She's a fucking liar. She definitely could play like a relation to Jenna Ortega or whatever. Because if we learn nothing in these films, there's always a psycho family member somewhere in the background just waiting to get their fucking, ghost face fame or whatever.
That's true. It's always the family or a boyfriend, as we learn in the fifth movie.
So, but anyway, what I'm saying is there's still hope for her.
Yeah, I just don't. She's got that weirdly hot looks that would not fit for Randy. It just as his sister, she would look too different. I mean, I don't. That wouldn't have been good cast, I don't think.
Yeah.
Heather Locklear was considered for the role of Bianca Burnett. I don't get that one at all. I think they went the right way. If they wasn't going to get Jamie Lee Curtis, they should have. I mean, they went with Carrie Fisher, that old Hollywood, or like older Hollywood. That I know Heather Locklear was, but she was known more for TV, and also I feel like she got most of her fame in the mid '90s, anyways, playing on Melrose Place, anyways. So
I was gonna try to explain why it would work, but I can't because she's so, especially at this time, she's so fucking gorgeous. And she, for the most part, aged pretty well up until most recently, but fuck, you can only do so much, you know?
Yeah.
Who the fuck in their right mind would put her in the basement?
Yeah, she would have still been she would have been an actual actress. I mean, her looks would have put her there. I mean, it wouldn't have been, I mean, you can say what you want to about Princess Leia and the slave bikini, whatever. But like, I mean, Carrie Fisher was never, it was non-traditional beauty. She wasn't like the typical Hollywood, but Heather Locklear was straight up. Like, I mean, we talked about Jenna Jameson in her prime. Same thing with Heather Locklear. I mean, and I think they even dated the same guys. So, yeah. I mean,
Heather Locklear, there's some unflattering photos of her. She's out with no makeup. She's older. You can tell the woman has not really had any work done on her. But then there's another photo of her as of recently, and she's wearing makeup. Now, makeup does, we can do some amazing things with makeup. It's not changing her face at all, but for me, I feel like it makes me look more awake. It makes me look less tired, makes me look a little bit younger, not excessively. And I think that Heather Locklear, she is just a natural beauty that, has chosen not to go the plastic surgery route, and I commend her for that.
Yeah, it's crazy the way that they'll butcher themselves to look, try to retain that youth or whatever.
Yeah, so she has aged gracefully.
Following the Columbine High School massacre, there was a conscious effort to make this installment less grisly and violent than the previous films. At one point, the studio suggested that the new film show no blood or on-screen violence at all, at which point Wes Craven threatened to walk.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, you talk about a shit that would have destroyed. They wouldn't have came back with a reboot or anything if it would have been that way.
I mean, there was guns in this film, but it wasn't to the extent of a mass shooting by any means.
No,
and it was mostly stabbings.
Well, and we'll get back to it here in a second. I mean, I think it comes up again in the trivia, but yeah, it's a different concept. But people react. I mean, like there was a lot of movies that had nothing to do with like bombings that were shelved around the same time as 9/11, just because they were like, no, we got to have feel good movies. Yeah. We can't have any of this stuff. At around 1 hour and 45 minutes, when Sydney jumped over the bar and stabbed the killer in the back with an ice pick, Neve Campbell missed the pad that she was supposed to plunge into and actually hit Scott Foley's flesh. His scream in that scene is actual genuine.
That's fucked up, but that's hilarious.
In 2009 interview, Matthew Lillard claimed that he had been contracted to reprise his role as the primary antagonist, having survived his apparent death in Scream 1996, orchestrating new Ghostface attacks in prison on high school students, and ultimately targeting Sydney. Following the Columbine High School massacre shortly before production began, they scrapped that because they didn't want to have it tied to the high school setting and the associated violence. Now, I get that, why they didn't want that with Columbine, but how cool would that have been fucking to have Matthew Lillard back and him being the mastermind. Oh my God, that's an alternate universe that we're living in the dark timeline of, because that would have been awesome.
But this is the third film. I feel like it would have been mentioned in the second film that he survived. I feel like they would have had to have at least known about a funeral that happened for Billy and Stu, or Stu. I don't know, not at the same time, but
I would say that, but they're still talking about him being in part 6 that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. So
so I'm very curious to see how that goes and how they explain away the fact that, how the fuck did he survive and how did no one know he survived? And Sydney would be on high alert if he were still alive.
Sydney would have never relaxed at all and did anything if she'd known he was still out there.
Yeah.
At around 14 minutes, Tyson Fox, Dion Richmond, says that Cotton Weary's murder was probably some Stab fan pissed off that they killed Randy in Stab 2, which is a reference to Scream fanatics being upset that, and I was probably one of them, upset that Randy was killed in Scream 2. Wes Craven got hate email at his official website because the character was killed. It was the upset fans that led to the idea of Randy surviving Scream 2 as a twist later, but then later changed to a video recording.
And he could have survived. Like I said, Dewey fucking got slashed.
He could have, yes. According to the commentary about director Wes Craven, Angelina Tyler, Emily Mortimer, was supposed to be the second killer, as we've discussed earlier, as Roman Bridger's girlfriend and ex-classmate of Sydney from Scream. But the producers didn't like the idea, as this was part of an incestuous fantasy subplot with Roman. who thought of having sex with Angelina as having sex with Sydney herself. The change was also, well, that would have been an interesting twist, and it plays back to a lot of Psycho stuff with him and his mom, but we'll leave that there.
Yeah.
The change was also to distance the film further from the Columbine shootings, so as to not to have the two killers working together, just like the real killers of said tragedy.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why they only had one killer is so there wouldn't be two killers like at Columbine, which is dumb, but that's whatever. Due to Angelina Tyler no longer being the second killer in the film, this caused a plot hole with Roman Bridger being the only killer. He's somehow able to travel very long distances and practically teleport between them to commit all the implausible murders, and mainly in these instances, Angelina was unaccounted for, as she was going to be the killer when Roman wasn't around. Hints of Angelina being the second killer still remain in the film.
Yes, I caught those.
Angelina's, especially that scene where she's talking to Sydney all creepy in the bathroom recreation of like her high school bathroom or whatever, that they was a perfect setup there that she was trying to be Sydney or whatever. Angelina's death, where her body is mysteriously dragged away as Gail and Jennifer look on in horror, was intentionally shot with a sense of ambiguity, according to Patrick Lussier and Marianne Madalena in the audio commentary, who called her death scene dubious. This was to leave a suggestion that she was Ghostface, as it wouldn't be the first time a Ghostface faked their own death to clear their name. She would have came back and revealed herself alive after Sydney arrives at the mansion, according to the original script. Her death, quote unquote, on scene was originally intended to be a fake out.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah, and she's technically the only, if you want to go by the canon that she didn't die, which a lot of fans have, she's the only Ghostface to have got away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Roman faking his own death has been singled out for criticism ever since the film's release. The fact that he's the only killer in the film makes his fake death seem very far-fetched to pull off, as nobody would have helped him stage it, along with the fact that Gail checked his pulse and seemingly verified that he's dead, which I noticed, and this made no fucking sense.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, she leans in there and she actually checks his pulse, and she's like, oh, and then she screams or whatever because he's supposedly dead. It's like, how bad are you at getting a pulse? God damn. Wes Craven tried to explain this plot hole by saying that there are ways to slow down your pulse in real life without causing death, but such an explanation is never given in the film. And he's right, and it's also right that he never explains it, so it sucks. Death Holler Awards, we got Sydney back. Limited presence, we've already talked about in real life, the reasons why. This is the least performance by Sydney in it. I mean, she does a good job, but I mean, she's just not there. She's not. There's at one point where Parker Posey's almost more of a final girl than Sydney is.
Yeah.
I would prefer it if they would have made Parker like a final girl, but you know, I guess that was their way of killing Gail without killing Gail in this movie, was to have her stand in, get killed. The slasher Roman, he sucks. I don't like him as the killer. I don't. What's your thoughts on him?
It's weird because I did like him. I didn't hate him. There are a lot of things that don't make sense, but I like him more than I liked what's her name, Laurie, in the first film or the second film.
I think that I think it goes back to the retcon taken away from Stu and Billy that I think I disliked the most. If it weren't for that, I think I could have forgiven him and he'd just been okay. But he edges in the bad territory because of that. Yeah,
and I don't blame you for that at all. I mean, that just didn't enter my brain, and I guess I'm holding on to what I perceive what happened, so that's why I'm like, it's not bad, you know.
The best kill is the explosion. It's character deserved it. He was completely stupid. I'm going to skip ahead. It's also the dumbest moment of this movie, and it borders on in the entire series. Parker going back in there, and it's like, I got to read the facts. I got to read the next slide. It's you don't got to read shit. What? This is dumb.
They want to know who's going to survive, which is hilarious. Yeah. I'm going to say a close second for me was when Sarah Darling died, because that was very Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, that was not too bad of a kill. That was probably the second best kill in the movie, because the rest of them were fairly standard. I mean, you know, stabs, you know, whatever, gunshots, that sort of thing. The best scream, I'm giving it to Jennifer Jolie. Like she screams her head off at the scene where Tom gets blown up. So I mean, Parker went out of her way to scream in that scene, so I give her that much. She also was screaming pretty well at the end of the movie where she's like seeing through that two-way glass or whatever.
Yeah.
Which just says a whole other thing about Harvey Weinstein having the two-way glass and the fact that there's people getting raped on the other side of the. It's gross. Best, I'm gonna throw in here. I wouldn't throw it into these other movies. Best boobs. I'm just leaving in for this. They had Jenny McCarthy. Oh, I'm so mad.
Yes.
None of these movies show breasts, because if anybody in any of these movies was going to show them, it should have been Jenny McCarthy, and it should have been in this movie. So you wasted an opportunity.
Okay, am I crazy? Was this like the first set of boobs she had, and they got bigger over time?
Oh, they were bigger and later on, for sure, yeah.
Okay, because I'm like, because they looked almost natural, and I was like, look at her fucking, those are the most impressive implants I've seen, because I know she has implants. She's had them for a long time. As far as I know, she was flat-chested before she got implants. I thought these looked very natural, considering they're not.
I feel like this was right around the time that she was unsingled out with Chris Hardwick or whatever. Whenever she was like her and Carmen. I mean, I don't know if Carmen Electra came before or after her, but like, this was around the same time, and that's whenever she started standing out and getting all these and getting like the Playboy issues and all that stuff. So
I think she was the one that was after, because at first I was like, who the fuck is this blonde bimbo? But then because she was wild on there, and then I was like, oh wait a second, actually, she's not that bad.
Yeah, she brought more comedy to the to that show than like Carmen did. Carmen was just straight up like sex bomb. Like that's what she was there for, and that's what she did. And Jenny like joked around and stuff on the show. Best killer motive. There's only the one, and this is Roman. It's mommy issues again. Different flavor, same thing. Blame Sidney for the life that he never got to live.
But he's living a fucking way better life than she does.
Yeah, but somehow, but she got to spend time with mommy and he didn't.
My apologies. I got a question. The Weinstein character, was that Roman Bridger's dad?
Yes. Okay. It was hinted that was he. Yeah. Milton was supposed to have been his father.
Okay.
And then that's why that she gave him away or whatever.
Okay.
Because she didn't want to, live that life. She wanted to start fresh and all that stuff.
Okay, which makes sense, because I'm like, well, first of all, he's like, well, go tell everybody we'll cut cake in just a minute. And then there's the whole, he lived a way better fucking life than Sidney ever was going to live. And it's like, which is so hilarious.
Nancy Loomis has the most boring one. He's probably got the dumbest of all of them. I mean, and I say dumb. I mean, I know there's ones later that are all movie related, but I mean, this one, it's just like, he doesn't really have a reason to blame Sidney. It's the dumbest reason why he's blaming her. Like, I mean, he's, we've already discussed it. He obviously was raised by good people. He got up into Hollywood just like his, his real dad, even if there was a bad situation there. So he had no reason to blame Sidney. That's kind of a dumb thing.
Definitely.
Gail is kind of the doom prophet in this movie. She's the one that's like, oh God, it's they're back again. I've got to investigate this. She's the one that pushing the, because Dewey doesn't even act like he really cares, other than the fact he's just trying to keep Parker safe in this one. But it's kind of weird having Gail being the one that cares. Which it's not a cares in the sense that she really cares about people getting killed, but I mean, it's just weird.
What's weird about it is that Dewey was on set kind of as I was there, I lived this, so I can help you guys with the direction of the film. But Parker had said, oh, well, he makes me feel safe. And I know that's probably to kind of get them in that love triangle, whatever. But, like, she didn't have anything to be afraid of at the moment because there was no killings going on. Yes, eventually killings started happening, but she didn't need him there as a bodyguard.
No, and she already had Stone, which was,
come on now.
Versus, you got one guy that's like the Terminator versus Dewey that looks like, he just, stepped out of high school. I mean, it's kind of laughable in that sense.
Exactly. So I don't know. That part wasn't making sense. I to be honest with you, really didn't like Parker Posey's character. I kind of don't like her in a lot of her roles because she kind of plays the same character.
She plays a bitch. I mean, honestly.
So, which is good. I mean, if you're playing an unlikable character, it's just, I don't know. She gets to be annoying to me sometimes. So, but she was useful in the film. It wasn't anything like, they could have done without her. They couldn't have.
I mean, she does play a good version of Gale.
Yeah.
I mean,
and she was beneficial in the film too. I mean, in terms of getting Gale into places that Gale couldn't get into and things like that. So,
yeah, that's true. Best side character, Randy again.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only highlight in the movie. Stephen Stone's Mabius. I mean, Warburton has got his own charisma, his own goofy charisma. I mean, when he's on short amount of times he's on camera, I feel like everybody else that was in the Stab movie, within the movie, we're all kind of just bodies. They didn't really stand out.
Well,
I mean,
it was there. Neither of those two for me, and I will tell you a character that did stand out to me that I think was the best side character, and that was Sydney's golden retriever.
Of course.
I did not get his name. I just realized right now, like, oh my God, that was this movie.
Dumbest moment, we've already said, going back and reading the facts.
Yeah.
So
got what he deserved.
Yep. Anything else to wrap this up? Like you said, it's diminishing returns on all of these. It's Scream is, a classic, modern day classic. I mean, I don't know how modern day now. I mean, time marches on and all that, but then progressively worse. This being the most hated of all the movies by most of the fans. That's just how they fall. And I mean, I know that's kind of stereotypical but I mean, I feel like other franchises don't necessarily, I mean, Friday the 13th, for instance, like it was the 4th and 6th movies that were some of the best in that series. And I mean, part 1's actually I mean, I'm glad that what it did, but it wouldn't lighten the world on fire for what it was. Whereas this one, it's like they started out super strong.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's go back to the well one more time.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough one because this is supposed to be the trilogy and they decided to keep going on. It has to be just a money grab, It's hard to discuss further without starting to getting into the other films. So we should probably wrap it up here. And once we get to the final, well, it won't be the final because then we'll have the 6th to review in March.
Yeah. So coming up, we're going to have two more Scream films to discuss with the Tag of the Beast for Tragedy Girls and Being Tragedy Girls. And then we're going to discuss as a special presentation, Scream 6, to kind of wrap all this up whenever it actually debuts in theaters here in a couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, peace be with you.
And with your spirit.
Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the track where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks, where secrets lie in the border fires and the humming wires. Yeah, man, you know you're never coming back. Past the square, past the bridge, past the mills, past the stacks. On a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand. Wrap you in his arms, tell you that you've been a good boy. He'll rekindle all the dreams that took you a lifetime to destroy. He'll reach deep into the hole, heal your shrinking soul, but there won't be a single thing that you can do. He's a god, he's a man, he's a ghost, he's a guru. They're whispering his name through this disappearing land, but hidden in his coat is a red right hand. of respect. You feel like an insect. Well, don't you worry, buddy, 'cause here he comes through the ghettos and the barrio and the barry and the slum. His shadow is cast wherever he stands. Stacks of green paper in his red right hand. You'll see him in your head on the TV screen. Hey buddy, I'm warning you to turn it off. He's a ghost, he's a god, he's a man, he's a guru. You're one microscopic cog in his catastrophic plan, designed and directed by his red right hand.